30 said there is a forecast of weakening still here, with winds being clockwise and counterclockwise on the circulation. One has all been certain. It did. Any jog of the system that brushes back a little bit far to the west, some of these numbers, which range in excess of a foot, could make their way along it. Here's one, got to be prepared. Florida, not out of danger as of yet. Kelly, back to you.
All right, it's the unofficial end of summer. We've got your Labor Day weekend forecast, including Florida and the southeast. Definitely watching out for showers and storms for possible evacuation travel there. Otherwise, we are looking good in places like Memphis, Atlanta, nice weather. Hot, though. Temperatures all over the south in the 90s. Here's a look at your Labor Day Monday itself. Looking dry in Atlanta, 92, but stormy in Florida.
Storm Tracks, brought to you by Purina, your pet, our passion.
My Beneful Superfood Blend has me feeling super healthy with salmon, cranberries. Oh, but we are not done yet. Here comes Superfood Wet with beef, salmon, and pumpkin. It's like a superfood sundae on a Monday.
Beneful Superfood Blend, dry and wet recipes.
The world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate, available only on the next generation GMC Sierra. Step up to GMC and get over $10,000 total value on this next generation 2019 Sierra Crew Cab SLT. Or get 20% below MSRP on these 2019 Double Cab and SLE Crew Cab models with a traditional tailgate.
Exactly. Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
Nice. But what's up with your partner?
Not again. You know, that's your reflection. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
If you haven't tried Taco Bell's Breakfast Crunch Wrap, filled with crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and an entire hash brown, then consider this your wake-up call. Wake up to the Breakfast Crunch Wrap at Taco Bell. Order ahead and have it waiting.
Remember imagination? Or anything to that book. Where some red raisins taste like sour-flavored mixed berries, watermelons, even strawberries. Your fun grows naturally for miles. Puckers can be smiles, and fruit snacks can simply be whole fruit. Sun-made sour raisin snacks. No added sugar, no fake colors, just great sour flavor. Imagine that.
You're a big deal to us, so we've got big deals for you. Build up your fall wardrobe during the big deal event at Men's Warehouse this Labor Day. Suits start at $179.99. Dress and woven shirts are 3 for $99.99. Plus, take an extra 40% off select clearance items. Only at Men's Warehouse.
Both of these drinks have antioxidants. When you want to kickstart your day, you can choose the one with a full serving of vegetables, or you could go with 3 times the amount of sugar. If you're into that sort of thing, V8, the original plant-powered drink. Veg up.
I'm Jimmy Dean, and I wish I could tell you how I feel about a morning like this. And that includes a good hearty breakfast. You need something to kind of warm my whole body up and get it going. It's a great way to kick off your day.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha. The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness. During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters, or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars with laser illumination technology for just $39.99. Also get a protective carrying case, yours free. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling Atomic Beam flashlight, just pay separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-790-9910. That's 1-800-790-9910. Or visit ByNightHero.com. That's ByNightHero.com. Order now.
This is epic!
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
You got the severe weather threat. We are live on the ground right now.
the Weather Channel.
Hurricane hunters have flown into Hurricane Dorian and found that the pressure has dropped and the winds have therefore picked up, and this system continues to strengthen. Now with winds of 145 miles per hour, still a Category 4 hurricane, and it is moving toward the west at 12 miles per hour. We should get our next complete update coming up at 11 o'clock Eastern time from the National Hurricane Center. The path of this system may actually get tweaked a little bit based on new computer model information. But now, as the sun is coming up, we are starting to see the first pictures of the day, the visible satellite imagery showing just how well organized this system is, and a very clear eye in the center. Those hurricane force winds extend out about 30 miles from the center, and then you've got the tropical storm force winds that go out even farther from that. So we are going to be looking at a lot of people being impacted by this major hurricane. What is steering Dorian right now? Ridge of high pressure, upper level high, clockwise flow around it, and that's helping to push Dorian in that westward direction, at least for now. But it is going to be slowing down, unfortunately, as it makes its way toward the northern Bahama Islands, possibly even stalling a little bit. And unfortunately, with this high pressure set to weaken a little bit, that actually might open up the opportunity for more of a northern turn, possibly missing Florida in terms of direct landfall. But now you've still got the impacts in Florida because it's going to be so close to the coastline, and then eventually moving up toward the coast of Georgia and even the Carolinas. So take a look at the models for comparison's sake. Here's the Euro model. Here it comes toward the Bahamas. Terrible conditions tomorrow night into Monday. Then we get our system just offshore, too close for comfort though, and this is why your local authorities, say in Martin County, are saying, you know what? Might be a good time to get out of harm's way. I mean, this thing is awfully close. It's still going to be a major hurricane as we head towards Tuesday. Now, the American model has it in a slightly different position compared to the Euro. This is Tuesday. Once again, the American model has it sped up a little bit more toward the north than the Euro, but they're both pretty close to the coastline. Therefore, there will be impacts because, remember, it's not just the eye of the storm. Those winds and the rain extend pretty far out. So here's our projected path. We know it's going to continue west, but what does it do once it gets towards Florida? That's why the cone widens quite a bit. We do think that the winds are going to maintain major hurricane status as it kind of skirts the coast of Florida. And then, Reynolds, could we see a landfall in South Carolina? Possible, right? Could we see a landfall still in Florida? Right now, we do know that the tropical storm winds, we are likely to see those now along the east coast of Florida.
Yeah, we're at the point right now we can't say that someone is completely out of danger, okay? Right. We still have that threat that is going to exist in Florida, into the Carolinas, and beyond. So we got to really keep a sharp eye on this. It's been kind of a tennis match. We've been following some information to you. You've been sending it right back to us. A lot of questions about Hurricane Dorian on social media. We want to answer some of those questions, Kelly.
All right, Anthony is asking the question, I live in Columbia, South Carolina. Should we be prepared? I mean, they're not exactly on the coast, Reynolds, but as we look at the cone, once again, we do think that there will be some stronger winds, right, that emanate out from the center of circulation. So really anywhere in the path, and even just outside the path, we can't rule that out.
Yeah, a lot of times with these landfalling tropical systems, when they do come on shore, the wind begins to die down, but rain can still be an issue. So yes, if you are in parts of the Carolinas, even a place like Columbia, you have a lot of threats to deal with, including the chance of some flooding, very heavy rainfall. So.
And people waking up in Florida, I know they've been busy with the preparations and getting to the store and buying up the water. You should still be preparing, nevertheless, because we do see a lot of rain, especially along the east coast of Florida. Tropical storm winds are likely, but where does the hurricane make landfall? That's still a question, but the heavy rain is going to be a factor.
It's a tremendous question. And a lot of you, again, continuing the questions. There's the next one up. This from Patricia. She asks, Kelly, do you think Tampa will feel any effects from this hurricane?
Well, just like we answered with Columbia, South Carolina, you're still in the path, right?
Exactly.
So as we take a look here, there's Tampa, maybe not as much rain, of course, if the system was way over here. But Reynolds, you were in Jacksonville when Irma hit over on the west side of Florida, and you saw major impacts in Jacksonville, right?
Wasn't even in the cone.
Right.
Jacksonville wasn't even in the cone, and we had widespread flooding. So to answer the question, it's yes. And you can see the inland flood potential, which goes from Sunday all the way through Wednesday, big time frame. Very likely along the coast, but also the threat exists for the interior.
Now, it's higher along the East Coast, but Tampa, you're still in it for the potential of flooding and possible power outages as well. So do we have another question? Here we go from Johnny. If Dorian's forward speed to the west picks up, does that mean a track shifting farther to the west? Is that still a possibility?
You know what? I'm not going to take anything off the table for the time being. We have seen things happen over the years. Hurricane Charlie is a great example where all signs, this years ago, was going towards Tampa, made that quick right turn up Punta Gorda. No one expected it. It happened. So you can't rule anything out. But right now, models are in agreement that we do see more of a west, bit more northerly jog. So.
And by the way, Johnny, we should say that it is expected to slow down, actually, not speed up in the future, especially across the Bahama Islands, and then kind of meandering up the east coast of Florida. That's the way it looks right now. But again, the computer models like windshield wipers going back and forth a little bit.
Think about this for a second. You bring up such a good point. Okay, what is today? Today's Saturday. Thursday, still the forecast of 110 miles an hour.
Right. Well, that's if it stays over water.
If it stays over water.
So if it interacts with land, it will certainly weaken more than that. But, of course, all eyes, even up toward the Outer Banks of North Carolina, we should be watching this, too, and preparing just in case.
You know, folks, keep them coming. They really do so. Please be sure to send us those questions on social media using the hashtag Hurricane Questions. We're going to continue to answer those questions, Kelly.
And we will be with you all day long, all night long, as Hurricane Dorian threatens to ruin some of your Labor Day weekend plans. We hope not, but definitely have a plan B, especially if you're in the South. But the Midwest, Reynolds, Chicago looks gorgeous for today.
Looks okay. Chance of rain across portions of the Corn Belt, maybe some thunderstorms in Louisville, and looks like a better day for tomorrow, but high times in Louisville with 90.
Not bad in Kansas City, 83 degrees for tomorrow, and a quick check of your Labor Day Monday.
The Subaru Crosstrek. Dog tested, dog approved. Isabel runs an orphanage in India that I'm thinking of funding.
Isabel, what are you doing here?
I don't trust your wife.
She's going to give you money and you're going to question her integrity.
What does she want?
Rated PG-13. Now playing in a theater near you.
Try a drive up at Target, delivered to your car door so you can do more. More refill. More recharge. More relax. Target run and done.
Something great from Mr. Clean. Stop struggling to clean tough messes with sprays. Try Clean Freak. It has 3 times the cleaning power of the leading spray to dissolve kitchen grease on contact. And it's great for bathrooms. Just keep pumping the power nozzle to release a continuous burst of mist and make quick work of big jobs. It even works on stainless steel. It cuts through 100% of dirt, grease, and grime. Available with easy-to-swap refills. To get 3 times the cleaning power, try Clean Freak from Mr. Clean.
So, Josh, you going for our Drive Safe and Safe discount?
Yep. Using the app, driving safe. You want to go? You want to go, bro? Hey, do not mess with my discount. You can save up to 30%. Let's go! Nice to meet you. Go get it, Tiger.
Sounds like you've got this.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm.
This is Fracture. Just upload an image, place your order, and it'll show up at your door, beautifully printed directly on glass. And this isn't just another frame, not just another canvas. This is new. This is a Fracture. Visit FractureMe.com and print one today.
I know people love the dish remote. It's great. So why build in the Google Assistant? I mean, who really needs a TV remote that can turn the thermostat up, the lights down, and still access their DVR? Actually, some people could absolutely use a remote like that. The new Dish Voice Remote. Dish, tuned in to you.
April 18th is National Piñata Day, but you don't need to hit a paper-mache unicorn to get stuff you want. Just become an AARP member. Get health tips, learn about the latest tech, have nights out at local restaurants, and more. Get your AARP membership today.
And good morning, everyone. Over the last 48 hours in the Sunshine State, it has been preparation, 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 and you can see why. Look at that monster sitting east of the Bahamas this morning. That is Dorian at 145 miles per hour, a Category 4 storm working its way to the west. It still has time to strengthen, believe it or not. All right, we're at that point where it's trying to max itself out, but it's not doing that. We've got all sorts of coverage out here for you. I'm in Stewart, Florida, so I'm in Martin County, down here on the Treasure Coast, in the middle part of the state, which of course really gets busy this time of the year with the holiday weekend. We've got Felicia Combs, of course, Dr. Greg Postel will offer his insight on this change in the guidance, and if the guidance is even far enough east as you think it would be. And in Nassau, in the Bahamas, you can see the clouds starting to move in. Miami Beach, clouds from some of the same things that are steering Dorian towards us, interestingly enough, from this upper low and this instability that's here. All right, guys, our coverage, of course, of Dorian continues on the Weather Channel, as we always do. Got a very, very dangerous hurricane making its way to the west. It's really, really exploded over the last 24 hours. And when you think about the fact that it's gone up again in a rapid intensification cycle, it hasn't just gone up 40 miles per hour, okay? When you think about the power of the wind, that is an exponential relationship to the speed. So it's not just twice as powerful or 4 times as powerful, it's 10 to 20 times as powerful in terms of the damage that we can get. So the big question is, will we deal with that damaging wind in places? Certainly first in line will be the Bahamas. That's where the cone brings Dorian dangerously close to the Abacos and also in Grand Bahama Island. You heard certainly how concerned they are with that. Earlier on, we talked to the premier over there, and here's the visible imagery. Look at that, just a beautiful stadium effect. You still got a very, very well-defined CDO, even though the storm itself is a little bit elongated. So if you remember Michael last year as a Cat 5, you could go from the center of the hurricane all the way out to each point on every corner, and it was equidistant. This one's a little bit elongated, but that CDO is still very well organized, and again, it could still gain a little bit of strength as it works its way to the west. But the big question is, we're still dealing with the uncertainties. If it comes ashore or not. It does now impact the Carolinas versus Florida. Things have changed here, guys, in the last 24 hours in a big way through here. In some cases, maybe a better way for Florida. Still, don't let your guard down because we're still in development. All right, Rich Hardwick, where am I going here? Dr. Greg Postel. All right, this is the guy I want to talk to. Dr. Greg Postel, let's talk about what's happened here in terms of the guidance and what we've seen, and even, of course, the Hurricane Center responding to that guidance. But you know as well as I do, even with a hurricane offshore in Florida, if that, in fact, will be the case, there will still be impacts.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, the projections, even from right now, bring a high-impact event along the eastern part of Florida. Even if you take the NHC's track, the National Hurricane Center track verbatim, it will bring tropical storm force winds and some rain up and down Florida, and then farther north from there into Georgia and the Carolinas. Nobody is off the hook. I've said that all along. I said the options are on the table all the way from southern Florida through the outer banks of North Carolina. You can't lose sight of this thing. Even if you're not in the cone, you're not off the hook. So here we go. Hurricane Dorian, 145 mile per hour, Category 4 hurricane. The hurricane hunters are in there right now and finding extremely fast winds just above the deck at about 180 to 190 miles per hour, 1,000 feet up. And of course, those kinds of winds could do a lot of damage if even a fraction of them were brought down to the surface in some wind gusts. But before we get to that, let's look at what we've got in terms of advisories, because we know parts of the Bahamas are going to be impacted very significantly by this Category 4 strength hurricane moving through with a lot of storm surge, potentially 10 to 15 feet across parts of the northern Bahamas. There's a visible satellite picture. It continues its assault on areas closing in on the Bahamas. And here we go. This thing is steady as she goes toward the west. And we have to be very careful with it, as slight changes in the track will make huge differences in the outcome and the weather that you get. Look at this visible satellite shot. Cantori was talking about this. The center cleared out very nicely about 24 hours ago. When that happened, we knew the pressures would tank, and they did, and the wind speeds came up just in the last 24 hours a lot. And we are dealing with a highly organized, very dangerous hurricane, with the hurricane hunters flying their zigzagging routes right now, typically finding winds near the surface of 145 to 150 miles per hour in that eye wall. For the last, say 18 to 24 hours, Dorian has taken that westward turn, that well-anticipated and unwanted westward turn. You can see that now sort of getting its sights on the Bahamas and perhaps the mainland United States as we go forward. And you can see the steering flow around it is allowing that to happen. There's a lot of wind aloft coming in like this that is directing traffic and sending, essentially, Dorian in that direction. But we've also been talking about trends in the forecast, how lately they've been trending a bit farther to the east and offshore. Why could that be? Well, with a little bit of investigation, it is indeed possible that there's a bit of a wiggle in the jet stream that is now, in recent model runs, over the United States. Well, that thing is going to swoop down and find itself over the southeastern United States in a little bit of time and allow for some southwesterly wind to move in that direction, and potentially that is what is associated with some of these eastward trends in the guidance. I'll talk much more about that. I'm going to take it right now to the Florida governor giving an update on Dorian live. Let's listen in.
It's positive. If it bumps just a little west, then you're looking at really, really significant impacts. And so don't make any assumptions. Remain vigilant and be prepared. We're going to continue to monitor the situation here in the state with fuel and traffic flows and take action as is necessary. But everyone should continue to monitor the storm and follow the direction from your local officials. As many of you know, as of this morning, the following counties have issued mandatory evacuation orders. Brevard County starting on Sunday. Martin County has issued a partial, and then a number of counties have issued voluntary evacuation orders. Glades, Hendry, Martin, Osceola, Palm Beach, St. Lucie. Obviously, those evacuation orders could change. So just continue to follow local updates, but remain prepared, continue to make preparations, and, we will hope, that the trend continues. But there is still a significant chance of a strike on the state of Florida. If you look at that cone, anyone inside that cone needs to be prepared. And so we're continuing to click on all cylinders here, and are going to continue to be monitoring the situation and working with both our local and federal partners. And we do have FEMA has been engaged with us from the beginning. We really appreciate that, and we have time to take some questions.
The audio of the briefing. I wanted to ask you, with the two counties that have issued evacuation notices, are you doing anything to enhance that evacuation, lifting tolls or doing anything with the shoulders?
We are going to monitor the traffic flows, and if the traffic becomes abnormal, then we will take needed action to alleviate that. However, at this point, we do not see any abnormal traffic on the roadways, and so those options are on the table, and if need be, they can be exercised.
Governor, are you worried that people are sitting back and just assuming it'll go one way?
Well, we've been listening into the Florida governor's press conference on the close approach of Hurricane Dorian over the next couple of days. And let's talk about that close approach, because it's going to get close. We really do believe that after moving through the Bahamas, unfortunately, at a very devastating level. So here we go. Here's the Hurricane Center's forecast track, right? That's the latest one, and that is forecasted to move essentially like that. Now, we know going forward there are going to be adjustments to this forecast, so don't rely exactly on that yet. But the other point here is that when we talk about forecast lines, we know that the weather impacts extend some distance away from that, and in some cases, a big distance. So I put on the tropical storm force wind radii right now, where Dorian is, extending out over 105 miles from the center point. Let's just take this for example. The hurricane center's track is very close to what will actually happen. We know then that the tropical storm force winds will move across much of Florida and then northward from there. So even though with some of these eastward adjustments to the forecast that we've seen, it still brings a very high impact event for Florida, and then of course potentially Georgia and also the Carolinas. Guys, we've been saying this all along for days, that there's a lot of uncertainty when that northward turn will take place and exactly where it will take place. There are still options that bring Dorian very close to, if not just onshore Florida and then northward. There are now more likely scenarios that perhaps bring it just offshore Florida, but then bring it in the center to parts of the Carolinas. And then there are still some options which carry completely out to sea. All of them are viable. Some of the things we are going to be watching going forward as to which one will be most likely are some of the little ripples in the jet stream that right now there's a little bit of anomaly, a little bit of a perturbation in the jet stream that over the next couple of days will be swooping down and trying to bring Dorian northward as Dorian closes in on the coast. That is one thing to watch. So here we go. Here's some of the different sets of models that we look at. There's the NHC forecast. Guys, here's a few other forecasts right out in here that forecast Dorian's center to be even farther to the east. And if you look at some of the ECNW models, when they run them over and over again, they are continuing that trend with a sort of a scenario more northward and eastward becoming more and more likely. There is no guarantee here, guys, but I like some of the trends that I see for Florida, but not like them for areas farther to the north. There's the cone, and remember, the width of the cone is based on historical errors, and the hurricane could indeed be anywhere inside of that cone going forward. Jim, I'm going to send it over to you.
Push, now some of the things that are actually working with Dorian right now, we're getting a part of with these showers and thunderstorms coming on in. I want to talk about the guidance because, you know, a lot of this, of course, is what's used, these models to determine, where they're going to put the eventual track. And there is a spread for the most part, but a lot of the guidance is actually still east of where the track is. Do you think there's further chances to go east? That's the first part of the question. And then, is it too early to say, okay, well, once it starts heading east and out, do we even have to worry about the northeast part of the country? Could they be in play down the road?
Well, there's a lot to unpack there, Jim, and the trend in the forecast is real. And the Hurricane Center rightfully nudges their forecast not to follow wild swings, not to move with the noise, but to move with the signal. And their trends are, you said, farther to the east. Now, that still brings, the official forecast still brings a high impact event for Florida. Remember, the hurricane impacts extend pretty far and wide on both sides, and also brings a significant impactful event farther to the north in Georgia and the Carolinas. And you're right, while most of the guidance may be right of where the Hurricane Center's track is, for example, there and there, that doesn't close the door on it still making landfall in Florida. That is still a possibility, although maybe less of one than yesterday. It is still there, and you can't lose sight of that. We ask sometimes for way too much precision than actually can be given, and that needs to be understood from the end user and from the consumer side of things. But Jim, farther to the north, I mean, I don't know. That's a long way out. I don't even want to speculate on what might happen to this thing. But that sort of traditional recurve motion is in there. What's that?
Given the fact that I've seen, I was at ground zero 24 hours ago. Okay, so think about that. And now, I may not, get brushed much at all, especially if some of the latest guidance is right. So yes, things can change abruptly. You're right. Going out into the northeast is way too far in advance, without a doubt. But let's talk about this thing as it comes west. Do you think we have the potential here to get into something that could strengthen even further than what it is right now? Another category.
We're not that far from Category 5, just 10-mile-per-hour adjustment on the wind speed, and that is indeed possible. The symmetry of the storm is interesting. The hurricane hunters, by the way, are flying in there right now and finding that 145 to 150 mile per hour hurricane roughly. And of course, they're not sampling every corner of the eye wall. So we don't know exactly how strong it is, but it's real close to a Category 5, real close. Some of the satellite pictures suggest, if you I'll try to call one up here where the info's at, suggest that there is maybe the outflow is not quite perfectly symmetrical in all directions. It is preferentially on this side, maybe more so than this side. There may be a bit of westerly shear impacting the storm a little bit, and that may be some of why it hasn't gone above even where it is right now, Jim. But there are certainly, this thing is well arranged inside, and the ocean heat content is very high. It could get to Category 5 status, yes.
Let's go and focus on the Bahamas again short term. We're going to be dealing with issues, within the next 24 hours there. But even the guidance for the Abacos, Greg, and Grand Bahama has shifted a little bit to the north as well. This potentially putting them on the, if you will, if you can even say this, the weaker side of the storm. But being an island over the water, there's kind of no weaker side of the storm, is there?
The Bahamas are going to get hammered, Jim, and I think that's pretty clear. Unfortunately, very significant storm surge of 10 to 15 feet is possible across many of the islands, along with destructive winds over 100 miles per hour, beginning really later on tomorrow night and into early Monday. This is a very bad scenario, unfortunately, for many of them. Stay tuned for all the latest.
Severe storm damage can cost you thousands in repairs. Hi, Phil Swift here. This storm season, you need the entire Flex Seal family of products. Make fast, easy, on-the-spot repairs. Seal up cracks and holes to prevent wind and water from damaging your home. That's a lot of damage. Now it's easy to mend broken fences and make quick automotive repairs. Severe storms can be a nightmare. Now you can patch huge holes to seal up roof leaks. Easily fix busted downspouts and replace loose siding. With the Flex Seal family of products, you can patch, bond, seal, and repair. Even the worst conditions are no match for Flex Seal. Flex Seal Liquid, Flex Shot, Flex Tape, and Flex Glue. Get the Flex Seal family of products at these fine retailers.
To be their best, kids need good nutrition and practice. Lots of practice. Get them started right with Carnation Breakfast Essentials. It has protein plus vitamins and minerals to help kids be their best. Carnation Breakfast Essentials. Try Target same-day delivery. Delivered to your door so you can do more. More thrill. More skill. More chill. Target run and done.
Each year, Americans waste $21 billion by overpaying on car insurance. That's why I went to thezebra.com. Because while every company claims to save you money on car insurance, the Zebra shows you who actually can.
Compare car insurance for free at thezebra.com today.
When you have nausea, heartburn, indigestion, lumps and stomach diarrhea, try new Pepto Liquid Caps for fast relief and ultra coating. Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, get powerful relief with new Pepto-Bismol Liquid Caps.
Constipation can happen all around us. You just need to know where to look. Luckily, there's Colace. It's the #1 doctor-recommended stool softener brand for occasional constipation.
There's just no easy answers. Am I too old to start skateboarding?
Chew on it. Twizzlers.
Many sunglasses may actually make it harder to see. Now you can get HD clarity with Battle Vision by Atomic Beam. Hi, I'm Hunter Ellis, and I wear Battle Vision by Atomic Beam for crystal clear vision when it matters most. Battle Vision helps eliminate glare, enhance color, and provide UV protection. Unlike regular glasses, these high-tech HD polarized lenses help you see objects the naked eye can't detect. Battle Vision is built atomic tough. Even hard drops and knocks are no match. From motorcycles to riding your bike, playing tennis, or target practice, they're the best. Get Battle Vision for just $19.99. Order right now and we'll double this entire offer. Absolutely free. One to wear and a spare. 100% free. You'll also get a lifetime guarantee. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-790-9165. Call or visit by battlevision.com. So call 1-800-790-9165 now.
This is epic.
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network,
Got a severe weather threat. You're live on the ground right now. It's coming down.
the Weather Channel.
Shit. I need to see.
This is the first year I'm actually worried. 18 years, I've never boarded up, never did anything really, and just kind of like nothing happened. Last 2 years ago when we had the one, I can't remember what it was, my sliding door in my townhouse, because I downsized about 8 years ago, was shaking. And I said, you know what, I'm worried. So I got plywood this morning at Lowe's actually. Now I'm getting some other final stuff here at Home Depot. Got a propane tank. I'm pretty much ready. And I got a lot of wine.
Yeah, we can't stress this enough. And now is the time for the Southeast to prepare for Dorian, now a dangerous 145-mile-per-hour hurricane, just shy of a Cat 5. Here's what we know right now. Bahamas Prime Minister Hubert Minnis is scheduled to address his people at noon today and urge people to take necessary precautions. In Florida, watches may go up later today for portions of the state's east coast. Mandatory evacuations will begin tomorrow in Brevard and Martin counties. But people in Georgia and the Carolinas also need to be prepared for possible impacts. Now, we were talking about those mandatory evacuations that begin tomorrow for people living on the barrier islands of Martin County, Florida. And Jim Cantori joins us live from the town of Stuart. And Jim, how is the response from people living in that town? And of course, we're still dealing with occasional thunderstorms and downpours, which you just experienced just a moment ago.
Yeah, we got crushed. No question about it. But, you know, it's Florida, too. They come and they go, and the sun comes back out, which, of course, I could use right now to dry out a little bit. But you mentioned Martin County here on the Treasure Coast. We're talking about this in the last 4 hours. You know, even with a storm that goes offshore, there's still going to be tremendous impact potentially on the coast and so to the barrier islands. So this is still an issue that has to be addressed, regardless of where this thing goes. Yesterday, at this time, when I was getting out of plane, this was ground zero. Now we're going to be on the western end of it. All right, let's talk about what's happening inland, because as things change here a little bit, they certainly changed in inland areas as well. Orlando is where we find Felicia Combs this morning. Felicia, the issue there a lot of times is gasoline. What is the latest on the gas situation in Orlando?
The latest in Orlando, up from yesterday, about 50% of the stations are out of gas now in the Orlando area. We're at one of the stations along the turnpike, which, of course, would be part of the evacuation route. So we've been told, actually, by an employee here that this station will not run out of gas because it's on the evacuation route. And actually, you're speaking with Stephanie. She is evacuating out of South Florida, the Port St. Lucie area. So, Stephanie, tell me exactly what you said earlier about why you decided to leave.
Just leaving because the storm can do anything. You never know what they're going to do. They can say anything, but you never know if it's going to decide to get stronger, stay put, or which direction it'll go. So we're just leaving to be safe because my son has special needs. He has autism, and he eats very few things. So if I can't cook it, he won't eat. And if we're going to be without power, then I can't make him anything. So we always just head out if it looks like it's going to be bad, and this one's pretty big, so we're going to go.
And you said you've done this a couple times, so you're no stranger to this. How would you say this time evacuating is comparing to previous times?
So far, we're getting out pretty early, so it's going pretty smooth. So I feel very blessed.
Thank you, Stephanie, and safe travels. Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of people are thinking. We're just hearing that most people are getting prepared. They're already prepared. And I think everyone is really taking this storm very seriously, which is, of course, what we love to hear. The gas station that we're at here particularly has extra people helping to direct traffic. We haven't heard anyone having any issues with, sometimes people are getting angry and beeping at each other and things like that. We've seen none of that at this gas station here on the Turnpike. And as mentioned, this station will not be running out of gas, of course. We've heard FHP is also directing or going with some of the fuel tankers to make sure the gas is able to get in. So I'd say for now, here in Orlando, things are running pretty smoothly. Back to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, Felicia, live in Orlando, Florida. Now, across the entire Southeast, everyone is on... King tide, cities from Miami to Savannah and Charleston could see elevated levels of storm surge. So let's talk about that threat. As we take a look, we do, of course, have those hurricane warnings in place across the Bahamas, including the hurricane watch in the orange. But if we go ahead and take a look at that overall track from Dorian, we're going to see that this is tracking the center part of the storm. However, the impacts will be felt way ahead of it. We are going to see the waves pick up. And of course, it's not the best time. It's corresponding to those king tides where everything's going to be running very high. And that's why we do have coastal flood advisories and coastal flood watches already in place for places like Charleston, Brunswick, and even Jacksonville Beach, where the St. Johns River is going to rely on how things go with Dorian as we move ahead in time. Now, the arrival, the main onset of Dorian will be reaching the Carolinas by roughly, Monday, Tuesday, so we're still several days out. However, we're going to be feeling those impacts associated with the king tide. Of course, king tide means that it's a seasonal high tide cycle, the highest tide, and it occurs about 3 to 4 times per year. But I want to point this out. It can be worsened by coastal storms. And that's exactly what we're going to be seeing. And of course, as we take a quick look at Jacksonville, St. Johns River, we do have those high tide cycles coming in Saturday morning, 11:37, as well as midnight on Sunday. All right, team coverage continues for Hurricane Dorian. Here's a look at who's out in the field.
The Lab is brought to you by State Farm. There for when things go wrong, but also here to help life go right.
Wish you were here to see how bright the human spirit can shine. To see that no matter what nature does, people will do more. With one of the industry's largest catastrophe response teams, State Farm will always be among the first to arrive and the last to leave. To help show that human nature is greater than nature.
Let's get down to business. The business of Atlanta on Monday, Cincinnati on Tuesday, Philly on Wednesday, and Thursday, back to Cincinnati. Modernized comfort inns and suites have been refreshed, because when your business keeps going, our business is you. Get the lowest price guaranteed on all Choice Hotels when you book direct at choicehotels.com.
Dealing with psoriatic arthritis pain was so frustrating.
My skin, it was embarrassing.
My joints, they hurt.
The pain and swelling.
The tenderness.
The psoriasis.
I had to find something that worked on all of this.
I found Cosentix. Now, watch me.
Real people with active psoriatic arthritis are getting real relief with Cosentix. It's a different kind of targeted biologic. Cosentix treats more than just the joint pain of psoriatic arthritis. It even helps stop further joint damage. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur. Tell your doctor about an infection or symptoms. If your inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen, or if you've had a vaccine or plan to, serious allergic reactions may occur.
Your Buick doesn't have a roof rack. This is my Buick. How are we going to stay in your mom's Buick?
Easy.
I like that new Buick.
Me too.
I was actually talking about that Buick.
I knew that.
Did you?
Buick's fresh new lineup is full of surprises. It's Labor Day weekend. Discover the new Buick lineup. Current eligible non-GM owners and lessees get 20% below MSRP on most 2019 Buick Encore models.
Ready to upgrade your appliances? Today is the day for Do It. The Home Depot makes it easy to save now, compare options, and fuel your team for less. Shop hundreds of special buys, like $1,900 off this LG kitchen package. The Home Depot. More save, more Do It.
You can't fake the goodness of real strawberries. The crunch of real almonds. How chocolatey chunks taste cold milk. We keep it real. Because you can't fake delicious. Special K.
Alice loves the scent of Gain so much. She wished it came in a fabric softener too. Say hello to your fairy godmother, Alice. Oh, and look, they've got Gain scent beads and dryer sheets too.
Good cast, buddy.
Thanks.
From laser-measured floor liners to sunshade, the cup phone to secure phone, to tech liner for your bed and tailgate, bump step,
Can I hold it?
yeah, to no-drill mud flaps. Wow, look at that. WeatherTech has everything you need to keep your truck protected all year long. Order yours today at WeatherTech.com, the ultimate protection for your vehicle.
145 miles per hour. That's the current wind of Dorian as the hurricane hunters have been out there seeing a storm that's been developing even further this morning with that pressure drop and, of course, the correlating increase in the wind. It is heading toward the Bahamas, the Northern Bahama Islands, where they have the hurricane warnings up. And we have yet to see anything, certainly for Florida. And that may be because of the change, certainly in some of the model guidance that we've seen, keeping the center potentially, all right, potentially offshore. We still have guidance, though, that brings a little bit off to the west. So you can't let your guard down completely through here. I am in Stewart, Florida. I'm in Martin County here on the Treasure Coast. This was a really interesting area because if you go back to 2004 and you remember the four that we dealt with, Ivan, Charlie, Francis, and Gene, the latter two, Francis and Gene, actually made landfall on the barrier island out there east of me within a mile of each other, which is kind of an amazing fact. Does that mean that Dorian's going to do so? No. I'm just stating that. Whether storms come onshore or they stay just offshore, as was the case in Matthew in 2016, they can still impact the coast very heavily. And somebody who knows that all too well is the director of the Hurricane Center, Ken Graham. Ken, thanks for taking the time to talk to us again this morning. Again, we still have pretty much everything we felt we have in terms of an intensifying hurricane. What have you seen? What's the most prominent change that you've seen, whether it be in the strength or the guidance at this point?
Well, I think it's both, Jim. I mean, just looking at the structure itself, just a very healthy hurricane, so no indication of this weakening by any means. So we still continue to have a strong storm, but the forecast is so tricky because when is it going to slow down and make that turn? If it slows down a little earlier, it could be on the right side of our track. If it slows down a little later, it could be on the left side of the track. So still a tricky forecast.
Yeah, and the fact is we still have cone across Florida. And you know as well as I do, there are some of the model members that we look at that still keep Florida very, very much in play. But like we saw 2 days ago with Florida ramping up preparations, would you encourage folks in Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina to do the same?
Yeah, definitely have to, because if you look at it, you know, we're actually forecasting it to slow down to about 2 miles an hour, Jim, right around the Bahamas, which is just devastating for those folks. So if you think about it, with time, that could make a big difference in where the storm goes. So we start looking at the middle of next week, the end of next week. We're talking about Georgia and the Carolinas as well. So either side of this cone, you're still going to get some impacts up in the Carolinas.
Yeah, so you're still talking about something that can skim the coast, stay off the coast entirely. And it's interesting, too, Ken, when you look at the fact that the models have picked up on that slowing, that's probably in part, it goes into the reasoning of the fact that it's probably going to stay offshore. Because now you see other players that go in steering this thing come into play because of that slower movement, right?
It's interesting, Jim, because you look back at the forecast over the last couple of days. So when the system was faster, it was really going to be influenced by that ridge. You know, the ridge really pushing it off to the west. Remember looking at some models and some solutions, even getting into the Gulf. But now with a slower movement, now the ridge weakens. Now you have that little system coming through the Great Lakes that's going to pull this to the north. It's all a game of inches. It's a game of time. I mean, a slower storm, you're starting to pull this up a little earlier. And so that's why this cone's still there. If we're in Florida, you still got to pay attention. A little wiggle at some point here when it stalls could make this shift a little bit to the left. So we still got to just really pay attention and be ready.
And as you stated, a long duration impact for the Bahamas, especially Grand Bahama and the Abacos. Is there any way to just paint us a picture of what that area is going to deal with over the next 24 to 36 hours?
Yeah, very devastating situation because if you think about it, we have movement about 2 miles an hour as we turn to the north. That happens. I've seen this over the decades. Every time they make these sharp turns, they just slow down. So major hurricane force winds, 130, 140 mile an hour higher gusts, storm surge, and devastating rains. We're talking maybe up to 15 to 20 inches or more of rainfall. So they're going to be dealing with that for a long period of time as this slows down and then all of a sudden tries to turn to the north.
All right, Ken Graham, we appreciate all your hard work. You and everybody at the Hurricane Center, we know you guys are pulling some long hours as you prepare us for Dorian. Thank you for your time, sir. All right, guys, again, you heard it from Ken, not painting a pretty picture for the Bahamas, especially Grand Bahama, and also the Abacos. These are beautiful, beautiful islands that are going to suffer a long duration wind, rain, wave event that they're going to deal with over there. So that is something certainly that is in our prayers. But in terms of impacts for the U.S., if you're watching us from North Carolina and South Carolina, think about where we were in Florida a couple of days ago. All right, so you should be ramping up your preps. Guys, we want your hurricane questions. Send them in to us. We'll answer them. You've had great questions, and we will keep doing that. Send them in, again, to the Weather Channel, and we'll get right on this.
Hey, my name is George, and I love the Chick-fil-A grilled nuggets. It's like me grilling at home. It tastes very similar to that, except the seasoning. I probably can't season it as well as Chick-fil-A does. The chicken's super tender, and honestly, the best nuggets I've ever tasted.
My name is Meredith, and a little thing I love about Chick-fil-A's mac and cheese is the oven-toasted, cheesy top layer. If home had a flavor, it would be Chick-fil-A's mac and cheese. I'm passionate about it.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life, posing a real threat to your comfort and safety. When the power goes out, you have no lights, no refrigeration, no heating or air conditioning. Your well or sump pump won't work. Your modern daily electronics are rendered useless. And what if the power's out for days or weeks? Are you prepared? You can be. With a Generac home standby generator.
24 days we were without power. I had water, I had ice, I had coffee, I had air conditioner. I was able to stay here because of Generac.
When an outage occurs, your Generac home standby generator automatically powers up, so your life goes on without disruption. You and your family are comfortable, safe, and secure. Generac generators run on your home's existing natural gas or propane. And Generac's standard mobile link remote monitoring system keeps you posted on operating status, maintenance updates, and more. Generac generators are designed, engineered, and purpose-built in the USA. Generac is the #1 manufacturer of home standby generators in the world. 8 out of 10 home generators are Generac, with thousands of satisfied customers.
Very good product. Very, very good reviews from everybody.
Prices start at just $19.99. And special financing is available with surprisingly affordable monthly payments. Call now to schedule your free in-home assessment with one of Generac's 6,000 nationwide dealers. The call is free, the assessment is free, and there's no obligation to buy. And if you act now, receive a free 1,200-watt inverter generator or a 40-volt cordless blower, up to a $500 value. Call now, so the next time there's a power outage, your home powers up. Power your life with Generac. Call or go online to schedule your free in-home assessment today.
Delicious high-fiber Raisin Bran.
Shrita, want me to come with you?
I'm very sure.
Because I can. Make good choices.
You make good choices.
I am. Fiber's good for digestive health.
Good choices never tasted so good. Raisin Bran.
Having the right coverage is important, especially when it comes to retirement. Do you know Medicare doesn't cover all your health care expenses in retirement? With Physicians Mutual, you won't be caught in the cold without the protection you need.
At Physicians Mutual, we know that planning for retirement can feel scary.
Heard you're retiring soon. My husband just retired. Figuring out how to stay covered was a real doozy.
Hey, look, Leonard's premiums are showing.
He doesn't even have a Medigap.
We're gonna say jump off.
Anyways, we found Physicians Mutual. They made it really easy. I'll give them a call.
Retire with confidence. We'll listen and find you the coverage you need.
Physicians Mutual, Physicians Mutual.
All right, guys, keeping an eye on a very dangerous Hurricane Dorian. Look at this visible imagery. You almost kind of look down in the center of it, and of course, with the sun coming up in the east, there's a shadow on the eastern side of the eye. You see how dark it is there? Because, you're talking about something that's 40,000, 50,000 feet high, and there's a shadow there because of the angle of the sun. And that's what you're looking at. So even down in the middle of the hurricane, there are several little vortices that are swirling around within that eye, and of course surround that, the most dangerous part of the hurricane, called the eye wall, and that's where the 145-mile-an-hour winds are, extending out to over 20 miles from the center. We are along the St. Lucie River this morning here in Martin County and Stewart. There are just beautiful islands here in and around Stewart, and one of them, of course, is Hutchinson Island, that was amazingly back in 2004, within a mile of itself, took 2 landfalls in Jean and Francis. What was that like, and how are they preparing for Dorian? Michelle Jones joins us now. She's the emergency manager here in Martin County. You were around? Probably not. You were maybe big back then?
I was in high school, actually, in 2004, over in Orlando.
Yeah, but I'm sure you've heard about that, certainly, especially as you
Absolutely.
guys look down at Dorian. How is Martin County getting ready?
Martin County is doing a fantastic job. We're seeing our residents get prepared, boarding up their homes, doing everything that they need to do. We're very proud of our community here. As you know.
Yeah, just out here in Stewart, I see a lot of these businesses that said, look, I'm just shutting it down. I've already got it boarded up, so they take it seriously.
Yeah, and we appreciate that. They were here in 2004. They saw Francis and Jean. We know what to do, and they're taking all the necessary steps.
So, as of this point, you guys have a mandatory evac for the barrier island.
Yes,
right?
for effective Sunday morning.
Sunday morning at 10.
10 a.m.
When do you meet on that, and would you potentially adjust that or not?
At this point, we're looking at maintaining our evacuation order.
You're still in the cone.
Absolutely.
Right?
So we're taking it very seriously. We don't think that we're really going to change that. We want to keep our message consistent and make sure that our residents know what to do.
And what do you want to tell residents right now? Anything that we're missing?
No,
keep up the good work.
Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
They're doing fantastic. They've got an amazing team back at the Emergency Operations Center, doing everything they can to take care of them. We've got our shelters. We're very excited to have our first pet-friendly shelter that's going to open for our residents this year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
it's interesting how it goes into effect, though, because you kind of coordinate the mandatory evacuation with the opening of the shelters, right? So that people have someplace to go when they actually are asked to evacuate.
Exactly, yeah. We don't want folks to, if folks are leaving early, we want them to go where they want to go if they're going out of the area. But when we hit that evacuation order, we want them to stay local. So tens of miles, not hundreds of miles.
Any word on, we've been hearing about Orlando, 50% of the gas stations. What's the word here in Martin County in terms of gas?
We're seeing some of our stations that are out, but they're looking at getting
They're
more
still getting
fuel
supply,
in.
aren't they?
Absolutely. So, it's not too late to take all the preparations that they need to now, before the storm really starts to impact us.
If things change track, we get to where we were yesterday at this time, which is why I'm here. Ground zero. What else goes into effect for you guys? What else would you do at that point?
We're
This is not happening. We're just kind of putting a hypothetical.
Yeah, it's great to see you, but hopefully not here for too long. We're going to continue with our plan. We're going to get our folks in our shelters. We're going to keep them safe there, shelter outside of the evacuation zone. That's our plan, and we're sticking to it.
All right, fantastic. Michelle, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Again, pretty confident how things are shaping up. I've done this enough where I drive through and come in and check out town, and I can tell you that, what they've done, you can definitely tell they took this very, very serious, as did a lot of Florida. Okay? The preparations have been going on and on and on. So this is not something I think you should let your guard down with, especially if you live along the coast and And may I remind you, even though Matthew skirted, there were impacts. Even though Irma was on the western part of the state, there were impacts on the eastern side of the state. So it's near that water that we may eventually feel for Florida some of the worst impacts coming up. So we'll keep you posted here, guys, from Martin County in the beautiful town of Stewart, right here on the St. Lucie River. Right now, let's go back to the weather check.
All right, thanks so much, Jim. And one country that is going to be definitely impacted by Dorian, the Bahamas, and it's bracing for potential catastrophic damage. Hurricane Dorian threatening 10 to 15-foot storm surge. A hurricane warning is in effect in the northern Bahamas, and there is a hurricane watch in effect for the southern Bahamas. Now, the Bahamas could feel Dorian's hit tomorrow morning, and they are urging people to seek higher ground right now. So here's a look at Dorian. Yes, it's still a Category 4 hurricane with winds associated with it at 145 miles per hour. We're going to get the next advisory at 11 a.m. Eastern time. We'll see how these numbers do. It's moving west at 12 miles per hour, and it's still roughly about 500 miles east of West Palm Beach. So here's those warnings and that hurricane watch that's currently in effect. Nassau, Freeport embedded in that warning. That watch includes the southern Bahamas. And as we look ahead, we're going to kind of break it down. What is that watch? What does that warning necessarily mean? And there's actually one key word in there. Sustained with the watch, it's possible to see those strong sustained winds at hurricane status, 74 plus mile per hour winds. With a warning, it's expected. Those winds are expected within a shorter period of time, so 36 hours versus 48 in a watch. So, of course, if you do have had plans to go to the Bahamas, of course, those likely need to be changed as we continue into next week. As we time out that threat, 10 a.m., we will continue to see that westward move of Dorian. But we want to hear from you. Send us your questions using hashtag Hurricane Questions. We're answering them now.
Mirror, mirror, on the wall. Makeup mode. Done. Start happily ever after playlist. Starting playlist. Alright. When does the nail salon open? At 9 a.m. Ooh. Remind me to update my profile pic. Setting reminder. Add catnip to my shopping list. Okay. Shower.
Okay, everyone. Our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Great tasting Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure for strength and energy.
If you haven't tried Taco Bell's Breakfast Crunch Wrap, filled with crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and an entire hash brown, then consider this your wake-up call. Wake up to the Breakfast Crunch Wrap at Taco Bell. Order ahead and have it waiting.
Work's more fulfilling. Carpool's more fun. Snack time tastes fresher. Glad I bought more than one.
Take the feeling with you. Sabra Snackers. Feel good food.
I just had Sabra hummus and now I feel good.
How long have you been standing there? 30 minutes? Boring. I only push fun buttons.
Slotomania's button brings pure excitement. Each push spins new games and exciting jackpot wins. Download Slotomania now.
Still could have knocked.
I'm Jimmy Dean, and I wish I could tell you how I feel about a morning like this. And that includes a good hearty breakfast. You need something to kind of warm the whole body up and get it going. It's a great way to kick off your day.
You know curb appeal when you see it. And with the Home Depot and the best brands around, you can start seeing it. Today is the day for doing with the best brands in paint. The Home Depot. More safe, more doing.
I'm a Venus. I'm a Venus. Constipation can happen all around us. You just need to know where to look. Luckily, there's Colace. It's the #1 doctor-recommended stool softener brand for occasional constipation.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha. The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness. During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the night bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars with laser illumination technology for just $39.99. You'll also get a protective carrying case, yours free. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling atomic beam flashlight, just pay separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-790-9910. That's 1-800-790-9910. Or visit ByNightHero.com. That's ByNightHero.com. Order now.
This is epic.
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got a severe weather threat here live on the ground. Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
And what you're seeing is that satellite of Dorian, just an impressive system, just continuously intensifying over the past several days to now a major category 4 hurricane. And of course, when you have that type of just massive, dangerous storm bearing down on the Florida coast, everyone's eyes are all on Dorian. Everyone is preparing, especially along the coast, but even here in Orlando, where we're a little bit more inland, people are taking this very seriously. We've been at one of the service plazas along the turnpike, which would turn into an evacuation route. And I'll tell you, everyone we've talked to so far this morning is evacuating. So we haven't talked to one person who's just, I'm just getting, gas to fill up. Everyone we've talked to has either been evacuating from South Florida or they're leaving out of Orlando. You can see here behind me, this is a really calm, I'd say, station. You see some of the videos coming out of people getting gas during a situation like this, and you see the people beeping and people being angry. That's not at all what we've seen here, and I'd say in large part thanks to the people that you see here in these bright yellow vests. This is the turnpike, they call them the strike team. They bring them out when we're dealing with things like a hurricane evacuation to kind of direct traffic, keep things a little bit more calm. And, I mentioned that we're all at one of the stations along the turnpike, which would be part of the evacuation route. And we've been told that historically these stations never run out of gas. The only time they close is when the conditions get so bad that they need to send their employees home. So that is something great to know as everyone here in Central Florida continues to prepare for Dorian. Liana?
All right, great to hear that news, Felicia. Thank you so much. Live in Orlando, Florida. Now, we have been getting a ton of questions about Hurricane Dorian, and we want to get to them. Of course, if you do want to continue asking them, use hashtag hurricane questions. The first one, what's more likely, the hurricane gaining strength before hitting Florida or weakening? And that's something that, we're going to have to keep a close eye on, as it is moving into some favorable waters still, Dr. Postel, and also limited shear. That's also coming into play.
Now, if either one of those were to happen, it wouldn't be by much. We would still be dealing with a very high-end Category 4 hurricane, and if it's strengthened, maybe a little bit into Cat 5. If it weakened, probably still into Cat 4. I would say those are probably equally likely, but again, the fluctuations are small. There it is on the satellite pictures. It's a highly organized machine. The hurricane hunters are in there right now, and they're finding 145 to 150 mile per hour winds. The other thing that we're looking at, too, is the shape of the pattern of cloud. It's not completely circular, right? I mean, more of it is sort of on the east side than on the west side. There's a bit of westerly shear impacting it. Not much, but a bit. That may be one thing working against getting a lot stronger, but the warm water underneath and otherwise favorable conditions are going to want it to get stronger. So it's an even balance, in my opinion.
All right.
Let's go ahead and answer more questions. Let's go to question number 2. Could South Florida still be impacted by Hurricane Dorian? That's asked by Trevor Robinson. I mean, people have been preparing. I mean, yesterday, 50% of Miami-Dade County gas was completely out, 50% of it. But people are preparing, but things could definitely change as we are still going to be seeing those impacts, Dr. Cosell.
I agree, and the answer is probably South Florida will probably in some way, at least the way it looks right now, be impacted by Dorian. Now, the odds of a landfall in South Florida are much lower now than they were, say, even a day ago, but at least some impacts are still possible, because if you look at it, there's the official track now from the Hurricane Center, but look at how big and how far out the tropical storm force winds extend. If you were just to play this out as is, now we know there could be some movement to the forecast, but imagine that probably some tropical storm force wind gusts will be very close to, if not onshore of Florida, if this track holds. Now, if it shifts farther to the east, which it still could, then we remove some of that risk. But overall, still prepare for some impacts, of course, even in South Florida.
Yeah, I mean, the waves, even coastal flooding, it's still something that even with Dorian even shifting even further east, you could still see something.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the next question. How similar is Dorian to Hugo?
Well, Hugo made a nasty landfall into South Carolina, coming at it about like that. It was more a direct southeast to northwest track. This one's track is a bit different. This has got that sort of more familiar recurvature path to it. So the tracks aren't exactly aligned, but maybe some of the impacts. We'll just have to wait and see going down the line. It could be a significant impact for South Carolina, but again, stay tuned because the forecasts are going to evolve as we go forward.
And even the act of it turning, Dr. Postel, that could definitely almost weaken it because it's using quite a bit of that energy as it's turning and shifting north.
That may be true, and the other thing is as it's turning north, what it's telling us is that it is being impacted by some stronger wind aloft. So as that turn occurs, there may be some stronger wind shear impacting it a little bit. That could work against it a little bit. Also, if it stays very slow over some of the same water, it could churn up some cooler waters. But those, we don't need to worry about that, because let's just take it with this grain of, or this view. It is still very likely to be a high-end hurricane, whatever exact tracks it takes close to the mainland United States. So impacts, prepare for them, because a very dangerous hurricane will likely be near shore.
Exactly. All right, let's go ahead and do we have another question?
Let's go to some of the forecast tracks. So we talked about the Hurricane Center's track. Some of the other models now are beginning to trend even farther to the east. We'll talk much more about this at the top of the hour. If you look at the guidance as it continues to roll in, hopefully that trend continues. But still, that does not leave Florida off the hook completely, or anybody else in Georgia or the Carolinas for that matter. We'll have live team coverage coming up, right?
Here's a look at where they're at.
Well, it finally happened, actually. Somebody burned down my she shed.
Nobody burned down your she shed, Cheryl.
Well, my she shed's on fire.
Your she shed was struck by lightning.
Exactly. It's my she shed covered by State Farm.
Your she shed's covered, Cheryl.
You hear that, Victor? I'm getting a new she shed.
She shear?
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful news.
Home insurance trusted by more people than any other. State Farm.
Hey, no, I'm driving Dad to the hospital. He was just playing with Emma and he hit his head, but then he wouldn't stop bleeding and he got dizzy. Right, the blood thinner for AFib. How you doing, Dad?
Okay.
Listen, we're pulling in. I'm gonna call you back. This is the 3rd time he's been admitted with a serious bleed. Is this blood thinner really helping?
I understand your concern. Your father's atrial fibrillation increases his risk for stroke. This is why you're on warfarin. But there is an alternative.
Another pill?
No, it's called Watchman. Watchman is a permanent implant that reduces the risk of stroke.
In a clinical trial, 9 out of 10 people who received Watchman stopped taking warfarin in 45 days. There are risks associated with the Watchman implant, including internal bleeding, stroke, and in rare cases, it can be fatal. Talk to your cardiologist so that you thoroughly understand all the benefits and risks to see if Watchman is right for you.
Learn more at Watchman.com. You know that look? That life of the party look. Walk it off look. 1 more mile look. Reply all look. Own your look with fewer lines.
there's only one Botox cosmetic. It's the only one FDA approved to temporarily make frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better. The effects of Botox cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Do not receive Botox cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow, eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Tell your doctor about your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. So give that just a puppy look, and whatever that look is, look like you with fewer lines. Text now to get your exclusive offer.
Everyone has a crew. A stone cold, never blink, walk in slow motion crew. 3 rows built for everyone. Leave no one behind in this sporty, spacious, crew-ready Cadillac XT6.
This is a track that has a significant amount of uncertainty.
Well, the biggest thing is not knowing what's going to happen.
The key is to have your plan and make those preparations right now.
Our continuing coverage of a very dangerous Hurricane Dorian, which you can see now on the infrared satellite. We've been showing you 2 different satellites this morning. Of course, with the sun up, we can show you the visible, the infrared, of course, sensing the cloud temperatures at certain heights in the atmosphere. And typically, these reds and oranges are very high up. And you can see they're circular, and they look like a donut, which is exactly what you get when you're looking down the barrel at a major hurricane like we have in through here. It's a very dangerous hurricane. You heard earlier on the director of the Hurricane Center, Ken Graham, talk about how he expects really very, very high impacts to the Bahamas from this, especially the northern Bahamas, as a result of this working its way to the east. We will check in with Felicia Combs in Orlando. We will check in with Dr. Greg Postel. He'll talk about some of the latest guidance and what may happen with that 11 a.m. advisory this morning, which will be coming in within the hour more than likely. And again, they're getting ready in the Bahamas to deal with this, especially the northern Bahamas, over the next 24 hours. All right, guys, I want to bring in the Honorable Governor of Florida, the state of Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis, and talk to him a little bit about how his state is ready and what is to come. Governor, first of all, on behalf of everyone at the Weather Channel, we appreciate your faith in us. We work with you as a team, sir, and we will be happy to always do that. So thank you for your comments. I really want to put that first. Secondly, let's start with where we are right now in terms of Florida's preparation.
But let me just say this, Jim. We love having people visit Florida. You are not someone I like to see in Florida. I like seeing you in other places because I know
I've heard that.
Things are calm here. So, but we're continuing to prepare, and we obviously are being very vigilant.
So let's talk about what's been done. If you could list in terms of, okay, we have evacuation plans, per NHC's advice to us. We've got enough fuel for people to evacuate. We've got power crews on standby, those kind of things. Where are we at with that?
Yes, Sure. So you have a number of counties that have evacuation plans in place. Brevard, I think where you are, has a mandatory evacuation starting Sunday. Martin County, just to the south, has partial. And then you have some of the other coastal counties that are under voluntary. And obviously, they're going to look to see, what happens with this storm. In terms of fuel, we've been the fuel trucks were refilling overnight at the ports. They're bringing in. That situation's improved. We've also brought in fuel from out of state. And then obviously, in terms of preparation, we are stressing that people need to remain vigilant and be prepared. Just small changes in this track could have a real significant impact on the state of Florida. And so I think people were pleased to see a little eastward track. But as you know, that is not something that you can just hang your hat on and let your guard down.
No, you're still in the cone, and that's the bottom line, and we have to remind everybody of that. The fact that you're still in the cone does not mean we get a free pass here. But I will ask you this. the fact that that cone has changed a little bit and the center point of that cone has taken the track off the coast, has that changed any of your plans for the state of Florida?
Well, it's allowed us, I think, to focus some of the resources that we brought to bear. I mean, as you know, 48 hours ago, the entire state was in the cone pretty much. And we were looking at a real possibility of it slamming through southern Florida, ending up in the Gulf of Mexico, then slamming the panhandle. Well, obviously, that scenario, the chances of that have been dramatically reduced. And so, we're looking at these East Coast counties. We're looking at seeing the storm take a track. Maybe it could be similar to Hurricane Matthew. And so it does allow us to, I think, to have the resources. Now, in terms of, you had mentioned the power and the utilities, our major utilities have brought in thousands and thousands of people that are going to be pre-positioned and on standby to be able to go in and help restore power. And we view that as very, very important. I mean, obviously, a storm of this magnitude could cause all kind of damage. If you can get the power back on for people, that really assists in the response and recovery efforts. And so they have brought in a lot of resources. I know Florida Power and Light they've been executing this plan for days and days. And that's obviously something that we look favorably upon in the state.
Governor, you mentioned Matthew, and I thought that's a pretty good position to start with where we are now from the current Hurricane Center cone. There were some pretty dramatic impacts on the coast. Are you expecting similar impacts with a similar track from Dorian?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you know, the eye of Matthew did not impact Florida. It rode the coast, really Brevard, Volusia, Flagler, St. John's, Duval counties. And what we saw with that is we saw significant impacts in terms of the storm surge. We saw a lot of coastal erosion. But then you also have the St. John's River, and you saw a lot of flooding in and around the St. John's River. And so, the eye of the storm obviously matters, but this thing's a big storm, and you're going to see a lot of water, and we already have areas of Florida that have been flooding. So there definitely can be really significant impacts, even if the storm doesn't actually break the shoreline.
Yeah, and that king tide is not helping, which is a seasonal, if you will, increase in the tide because of the sun and the moon. Let's talk about your checklist. What you wanted done, what you've gotten done. Is there anything left on your checklist that you want to get done before you deal with some of the worst of Dorian?
Well, we're working with FEMA on a couple of different items. I actually just spoke with the president right before I came on with you. So we're working through some of those things. But in terms of what we're doing in the state, I mean, we've really been working collaboratively with the counties. I mean, they develop their plans for evacuation, and we really wanted to work in concert with them. And our thing is at the state level, I'm not going to countermand what you think is best. I just want to make sure that you guys are moving forward, and they've all done that. I think we've worked well together. So I think we're in a good position to be able to respond to whatever happens. And the main thing at this point, I think, is that people just need to be prepared, remain vigilant, and if it ends up going further east, you're not going to be any worse for it. But if it ends up coming and hitting the state, you're going to be thankful that you did take time to prepare.
Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you for taking the time to talk to us, sir. Hopefully, Florida will fare very well out of this before all is said and done. But as you know, even with the storm offshore, we could certainly have some impacts. Again, that was Governor Ron DeSantis talking to us from the Emergency Management Center there, the Emergency Operations Center, I should say, in Tallahassee, Florida. Again, guys, reiterating how I really thought that was interesting. And this started a long time ago, by the way. I've had a history with Florida, certainly in hurricanes. Craig Fugate, he was the director of emergency management in the state of Florida. And that was his big deal, to have the counties deal with their own deal. And certainly he has done that and really put in a plan in place in time. So you can go back and thank the former administrator of FEMA, Craig Fugate, for kind of really getting the ball rolling on that. All right, let's talk a little bit about where Dr. Greg Postel, our hurricane expert, thinks this is going to go. Dr. Postel, you've seen some of the 12Z, or the early morning guidance of this morning. Again, this further notion of staying east comes to mind, but this is going to be one heck of a hurricane, pal.
Yes, the trend is real, and there's no reason denying that, but it also still doesn't leave anybody out of the woods. Nobody's out of the woods. And we're talking about, as you said, a very powerful hurricane at the very high end of the scale, Cat 4, almost a Category 5 hurricane, moving steadily westward. The speed of forward motion will probably begin to slow a little bit, and that will be a real problem for the Bahamas as this thing brings its destructive winds over 100 miles per hour through the region with very high storm surge, expected up to 10 to 15 feet, maybe more than that. And that will be a slow-moving, high-end Category 4 hurricane likely later tomorrow and into Monday. So the Bahamas, unfortunately, are going to see some extremely devastating impacts from Hurricane Dorian. Hurricane Dorian continues to trek almost due west on its movement closer and closer to the mainland United States. It is an ominous circulation with the hurricane hunters flying inside of that, slicing and dicing their way through, providing all of us with valuable information. We wouldn't know a lot about Dorian without their help, and this is incredibly important. They are finding winds inside of Dorian at 145 to 150 miles per hour at the surface, and just at about 1,000 feet, 170 to 190 mile per hour winds. That is testimony to how strong the circulation is, and it will continue to be that way at least for another couple of days. The movement, once northwestward, has now in the last 24 hours bent toward the west. That unwelcome westward turn we all knew was coming. It is now in play, and it is being steered by a bunch of things. One of them, this strong easterly wind aloft at many levels coming in like that, leaving Dorian essentially no option but to continue on that westward assault toward the Bahamas and, unfortunately, the mainland United States. Let's just assume, though, that the official hurricane track goes like this. That is a northward turn, the center of Dorian, a northward turn, according to the Hurricane Center, offshore of the United States and then northward from there. Just because the center is offshore doesn't eliminate the threat for significant impacts for Florida because, look, the tropical storm force winds extend outward over 100 miles from the center. So if you were just to go ahead and take that track or something very close to it, that is still going to bring significant impacts, high winds, and very heavy rain to parts of Florida. But the ultimate track, there is still a lot of uncertainty with that. There is more and more of a trend, as I mentioned, to go from a track, let's see, like about that, maybe toward one of these tracks that's even farther out to sea than the prior hurricane track that I showed you. This is a real trend, but again, it doesn't eliminate the possibility of a landfall in Florida. It just means maybe going forward, it's a bit less likely. But that brings considerable threat farther to the north for those in Georgia and the Carolinas. We've been talking about that, my gosh, for days now, that was still a possibility. No one is off the hook, even if you're out of the cone. There's a lot of uncertainty yet to sort out. Some of that uncertainty may be coming from what's going on right now in the jet stream. There's a wiggle in here, a little perturbation in the jet stream. That is, I think, going to play a significant role down the line as it tracks in that direction. And as it does over the next few days, it's going to impart a bit of a sort of counterclockwise flow across part of the southeastern U.S. And you can guess, with Dorian somewhere in this vicinity, maybe, just maybe, it gets impacted enough by that incoming upper trough, that little one, to draw it northward. I think that may be in part, along with other reasons, why we may be seeing that, and the trends in that may be associated with our better simulation of that system coming in. You can see that the trends from some of the other models here by these little thin lines continue to move it farther away. Maybe that's good news for Florida, but that is not good news for the Carolinas. Because if you live in Georgia, in South Carolina, North Carolina, don't lose sight of Dorian. A very dangerous hurricane may be very close by, middle of next week. And we've got to be mindful of that. These changes, Jim, are important to note. But again, nobody is out of the woods. Jim, back to you.
All right, so Dr. Postel, I had a question in mind for you. You answered it already in terms of what you think we're trending toward and where we may go at 11 o'clock with the Hurricane Center. So I'm going to ask you this. A lot of times, and certainly appropriate in this case, with Dorian being such a monster, 10 days ago, we were wondering if we're going to go the rest of August without having a hurricane or a tropical system. Now, obviously, that's changed. The switch has been flipped. And to people just tuning in this morning, all of a sudden we have something in the Gulf of Mexico and something out in the Atlantic we've seen for the last couple of days. is there any potential down the road impacts to the lower 48 or our friends in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands?
Way too early to know, Jim. When we're talking about a system that you can see on the map is just coming off of Africa, we don't know exactly where Dorian, that close to the United States, is exactly going to go.
Right, good point.
Let's just forget about all the other circles for now. Let's focus on extremely dangerous Category 4 Hurricane Dorian and its uncertainty yet to sort out.
Well, thanks for burying me on that one, Postel. I appreciate it. They're out there, and obviously we'll cover them for you on the Weather Channel as the conditions warm. But right now we are all Dorian all hours. And let's talk about impacts for the other parts of the state of Florida, specifically Orlando, a big vacation spot for millions and millions of family. So that's where we find Felicia Combs to talk to us about that situation. Of course, Felicia, we know this is Disneyland. This is Disney World. This is where all the people go see Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. What type of plans have they got in place for the park should
the way Walt Disney World is operating as normal for the most part and just continuing to monitor the storm track. They have done some things like canceling weekend sporting events at places like Blizzard Beach. They've also said that some of their resorts, they're letting the people know who are staying there that they need to be vigilant and they might have to enact a weather plan. And then SeaWorld actually going to end up closing a bit early tomorrow. They're going to close at 6 p.m. tomorrow instead of the normal 9:30. So we're seeing some changes, but for instance, like the water park with SeaWorld, they're not closing at all. So it's just kind of something to watch and see right now. But, you know, people in Orlando taking this very seriously, getting prepared. We're here on the Turnpike at one of the gas stations, and we've heard a lot of people saying that they are evacuating. They're heading to Georgia, or they're just heading to somewhere more safe. So people are taking this seriously, and that is what we like to see. Of course, we're here all morning, and we'll keep you updated with how Central Florida is faring with Dorian.
So how did this happen?
Now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Get your birdseed ready here.
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it.
Someone needs stitches in?
No, just the antibiotic cream. Oh, watch out.
United Healthcare.
This is not just a headache. This is not just a fever. This is not just the flu. It's meningitis B, and you're not there to help. While meningitis B is uncommon, once symptoms appear, they can progress quickly and can be fatal, sometimes within 24 hours. Before you send your teen to college, make sure you help protect them. Talk to your teen's doctor about meningitis B vaccination.
The Subaru Crosstrek with Starlink remote horn and lights. Dog tested, dog approved.
Ethel Percy Andrus didn't look like a fighter, but her tireless efforts to speak up for people created AARP, and we've still got that fighting spirit. AARP is taking on the drug companies to bring down prices for millions of Americans, because people shouldn't have to choose between buying food and buying medicine. We were founded to fight for people, and we're not done yet. Join us.
Remember imagination? Where anything could happen. Where sun-made raisins taste like sour-flavored mixed berries, watermelons, even strawberries. Where fun grows naturally for miles. Peppers can be smiles. And fruit snacks can simply be whole fruit. Sun-made sour raisin snacks. No added sugar, no fake colors, just great sour flavor. Imagine that.
Grab hold of a legendary
DR Field and Brush Mower and put it to the test on your property. Nothing stops the DR. Thick grass and weeds, out-of-control brush, even 3-inch thick trees are no match for America's favorite brush mower. Engineered and built in the USA, this machine is meant to take a beating. Lock it in and rip it up. Power steering gives you fingertip control. And our tow-behind models offer the same brush-busting power, cutting up to 52 inches wide. DR celebrates 30 years of brush mowing with our limited edition camo model. Hurry before they're sold out.
Call 1-800-510-9014 for a free buyer's guide and DVD. Try a DR on your own property for 1 year. Free shipping is now in effect, and our easy financing plan lets you make low monthly payments. That's 1-800-510-9014. Online at drfieldbrush.com.
This is epic!
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got the severe weather threat here live on the ground.
Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
We can't stress this enough. Now is the time for the Southeast to prepare for Dorian, now a dangerous 145-mile-per-hour hurricane, just shy of a Cat 5. Here's what we know right now. Georgia Governor Kemp urging Georgians in these areas to stay vigilant. Florida Governor DeSantis is warning Floridians not to let their guard down despite shifts in the forecast. And watches may be required for portions of the east coast of Florida later today. We do still have that hurricane warning as well as watches issued for the Bahamas. New changes in the track. Hurricane Dorian has shifted and could skirt up the east coast. But Floridians, do not take your eyes off the forecast. Dorian, still a slow-moving and powerful hurricane that could very well shift. Joining us this morning, and of course, you've seen this countless times as a governor, the critical moments getting people ready for a powerful hurricane.
Well, that's a big thing. Everybody's got to take responsibility and get prepared. I'm here at FEMA headquarters. You look behind me, all these federal agencies are here hard at work trying to provide support to local and state governments in all these potentially impacted areas. But you're right, you've got to get prepared. Don't assume this is going to go exactly somehow some track says it is. This can turn further west and come right across the state of Florida. On top of that, we know we have to make sure Georgia and the Carolinas get prepared. So take responsibility. You can go to ready.gov, get your plan, but everybody be ready, be prepared.
Senator Scott, talk about the urgency and how authorities are warning Floridians to be prepared for every possible scenario, just like you mentioned before. There's before the storm, but then there's even the aftermath with possible life-threatening flooding, power outages, and even rescue missions.
Well, first off, you need to have a plan. We don't know exactly where the storm is going to go, so go to ready.gov and get yourself a plan. 7 days of water, 7 days of food. Assume you might lose power for a while, so you just got to get ready. And then follow the local news, follow your sheriff's local, whatever they're telling you. If they're telling you evacuate, or if you think you're going to have to evacuate, do it now. Why wait? Get to a friend's house. It's a little bit safer. Don't take a chance. Don't wait till the last minute. And then afterwards, we're going to have a lot of water. Don't drive into water. We're going to have down power lines. Don't touch them. Be very careful the things you're going to try to fix afterwards. If you're going to use a generator, you've got to make sure you understand how it works. You don't run generators in your house. And unfortunately, in my 8 years as governor, we lost people with some basic things after these storms that we shouldn't have lost these individuals. So get prepared first, and then afterwards be very, very, very careful.
And Senator, when should those people under mandatory evacuations leave their homes?
I would do it as soon as you can. First off, right now, you should know where the shelters are, if you might need to go to a shelter, or if you're going to go see a friend or go with family or get into a hotel, make your plans right now. And if you can get out, don't wait until the traffic is backed up. Don't wait until it's even more difficult to get gas. Do all these things. Get ready now and take action now.
What about the newcomers to Florida? What is your message to them?
Well, you've got to take this seriously. And here's what was frustrating with Michael. When Michael happened, it happened very quickly. Went to a Category 4 and Category 5 storm very rapidly. It was very difficult to get everybody to understand the storm surge. If Dorian comes into the coast, we're going to see significant storm surge. A lot of times, what kills individuals is it's not the wind, it's the unbelievable amounts of water, the rain, the flooding, the storm surge that does it. Always remember, you can rebuild this house. I mean, you might love your house, everything about it. We can rebuild it. You can't rebuild your life. And there's a lot of people that care about you, so you got to take care of yourself and take care of your family.
Wise words for sure. And what about the visitors? I mean, we have a busy weekend coming up. I mean, it's Labor Day weekend. What about visitors and tourists to the state?
Follow the local news. Follow the Weather Channel. They're going to give you good information. Follow your local news. They're going to get good information and respond to it. Don't wait. Don't assume it's not going to happen. Really be ready right now. We had my last year as governor, we had 126 million tourists, and it's one thing we had to do every time when this happened. We had to get to our tourists and say, take this seriously, and listen to local law enforcement, local elected officials, what they're telling you to do.
And I know we talked about it just a moment before, but could you elaborate more on the supplies that are at the ready for the state of Florida?
Sure. It's very, first off, you have to take care of yourself first. All right. 7 days of water, 7 days of food, have batteries, have radio that works, have your medicine, have your papers, do all these things that you should do. Have a plan for your family. I know the state is trying to make sure they bring in all the resources. FEMA, I know, is working very hard to bring in all the resources that might be needed. I just got a briefing this morning already with the National Hurricane Center and with FEMA about first off, the information about the weather, but on FEMA, all their efforts, which they're putting unbelievable efforts to make sure, not just now in Florida, but Georgia and the Carolinas, they've got all the resources that might be necessary if this thing turns further to the west, wherever it does that.
Senator Rick Scott, thank you so much for joining us from our nation's capital and taking time out of a very busy time in your day. And of course, we want to hear from you. Use the hashtag Hurricane Questions and either tweet it or post it on Facebook. And we will get to your questions near the end of the hour, just about 20 minutes from now. Dr. Postel and I will be answering them through the day.
The Lab is brought to you by State Farm. There for when things go wrong, but also here to help life go right.
Wish you were here to see how bright the human spirit can shine. To see that no matter what nature does, people will do more. With one of the industry's largest catastrophe response teams, State Farm will always be among the first to arrive and the last to leave. To help show that human nature is greater than nature.
Who's ready for a great ride? Ready to work out my constipation? It's been so long.
Let's not talk about constipation.
Come on, everybody, work it out.
Say no more to occasional constipation with clinically proven effective Seneca. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back.
Lowe's knows more daylight is more time to do your summer projects right. We do summer right too, with everyday deals on all you need. So what you want to do gets done how you want it.
Now get 5 bags of premium mulch for $10. Do it right for less. Start with Lowe's.
You wouldn't accept an incomplete job from anyone else. Why accept it from your allergy pills? Flonase relieves your worst symptoms, including nasal congestion, which most pills don't. Flonase helps block 6 key inflammatory substances. Most pills only block 1. Flonase.
I know people love the dish remote. It's great. So why build in the Google Assistant? I mean, who really needs a TV remote that can turn the thermostat up,
Change temperatures.
the lights down, and still access their DVR? Actually, some people could absolutely use a remote like that. The new Dish voice remote. Dish, tuned in to you.
Discover new San Pellegrino Essenza, a twist of Mediterranean flavors with the gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino. Add a twist of flavor. San Pellegrino Essenza, tastefully Italian.
You can't fake the goodness of real strawberries. The crunch of real almonds. How chocolatey chunks taste in cold milk. We keep it real. Because you can't fake delicious. Special K.
Now's the time to find your color and everything to get started during Labor Day savings. Get a colorful new experience and get $10 off 1-gallon cans and $40 off 3 and 5-gallon buckets of paint and stain for a limited time at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing.
What's better than one night of Olive Garden? How about two? All new $5 take-home entrees. Enjoy any meal here. Then take home an all-time favorite like fettuccine Alfredo for just $5 more. Hurry in for $5 take-home entrees. Only at Olive Garden.
Jimmy's gotten used to his whole room smelling like sweaty odors. Yep, he's gone nose blind. He thinks it smells fine, but his mom smells this. Luckily for all your hard-to-wash fabrics, there's Febreze Fabric Refresher. Febreze doesn't just mask, it eliminates odors you've gone nose blind to. And try Febreze Unstoppables for fabric. With up to twice the fresh scent power, you'll want to try it again and again, and maybe just one more time. Indulge in irresistible freshness. Febreze Unstoppables. Breathe happy.
Let's get down to business. The business of Atlanta on Monday, Cincinnati on Tuesday, Philly on Wednesday, and Thursday, back to Cincinnati. Modernized Comfort Inns and Suites have been refreshed, because when your business keeps going, our business is you. Get the lowest price guaranteed on all Choice Hotels when you book direct at choicehotels.com.
Welcome back. We are on alert for Hurricane Dorian. The entire southeast coast preparing, watching Dorian to see what is going to happen. Everyone from Florida up into Georgia and the Carolinas need to be extra. Everyone needs to be watching exactly what is going on with this storm, and we've got you covered all across the state of Florida. Currently, I am here in Orlando at one of the stations along the turnpike, which will turn into an evacuation route if and when necessary. Now, I will tell you, this has not been the scene that you think of when you start to see, or you start to think of people trying to get gas before a hurricane. This has been pretty calm, pretty tranquil. Now, it has been very steady, but the scene that you're seeing here right now is pretty much what we've been seeing. And I would say this is thanks in large part to these people, these great people that you see here in these bright yellow shirts. And that's because they are here kind of helping to direct the traffic. So we have the Turnpike Strike Team. That's what they call them. They bring them out. And there are about 8 different service centers along the Turnpike. And they said today there are about 80 to 100 of these Turnpike Strike Team members that are out helping to direct the traffic at these gas stations. So things have been going really smoothly here. Dr. Postel, and you know, everyone is really taking this seriously. And I love to see that because everyone is getting prepared. So, you know, Dr. Postel, as we've been saying, this is a forecast that everyone is just kind of waiting and seeing. So we're going to go back to our hurricane expert, Dr. Postel, in studio now.
Felicia, thank you very much. You're exactly right. I mean, nobody is out of the woods. Nobody is off the hook, even though there have been some changes in the forecast, and rightfully so. We need to communicate that. That doesn't leave out or exclude the other possibilities, which, for example, continue to make a landfall in Florida. That is still on the table. We got to watch out for that because this is a very dangerous category 4 hurricane, moving still basically due west, maybe a little bit north of due west, gaining a little bit of latitude, but not much. It is moving almost due west at a very, very high intensity. The cone continues to show a wide potential of opportunities here, where you see that if you live in Florida, don't take your eye off of Dorian just because you've seen some recent trends in the data. And if you live in Georgia or the Carolinas, don't take your eye off of Dorian, because it may indeed be coming your way or very close to you as well. So find your spot on it. Know that anywhere inside that cone, we think the center of Dorian could be, with impacts extending outward from there. So there it is on the satellite pictures, ominously closing in on the Bahamas, right out here at Category 4 strength. This could lend a significant blow to many in the Bahamas, with storm surge and destructive winds over 100 miles per hour, doing a lot of damage. So that westward turn that we've been not wanting to see has now taken place, and that brings it continually closer to the Bahamas and the mainland United States. So it went northwestward, Dorian did last week, and now it has begun that fateful left turn that was well predicted by the models, but really unwanted. We don't want to see it get any closer to anybody, but unfortunately it will. And the steering patterns for right now are fairly clear. They are set for the next 24 to probably 48 hours. It is going to be heading in that direction for a whole bunch of reasons, giving you that steering pattern. But let's just talk about the potential impacts. I think it's still almost too early to really get in the weeds with this. But let's just take the Hurricane Center's forecast track for the center of Dorian. Now, we know there are going to be future adjustments, but let's just assume it does that. Maybe it's farther to the east, maybe it's a little bit to the left. But the tropical storm force winds extend outward 100 miles in some directions. That's a long way from the center. So even if the center is offshore, it could still bring very high impact wind to parts of Florida and, of course, then areas farther to the north. The exact track remains uncertain. There is still some possibility it makes a direct landfall in Florida and then goes up the peninsula. Those odds are going down, though. They're not impossible, but they're going down. More and more are the scenarios carry it very close to, if not just offshore of Florida, and then northward from there toward the Carolinas. It is also possible that this thing takes one of these tracks that never brings Dorian to the coast of the United States. That is the best possible outcome that we can hope for, and that is definitely still a possibility. So be mindful of that, and I'll talk more about this at the top of the hour. But one of the things we're going to be watching, among many others, is a little disturbance here that is going to be diving to the southeast U.S. that could help deflect Dorian northward and then out to sea. We just don't know yet. But coming up, we want us to hear from your questions, so please tweet us or post them on our Facebook page. Use the hashtag Hurricane Questions. Our team of experts will answer them throughout the day here on the Weather Channel. We're taking you a live look right now at Stuart, Florida, where the weather is great for now, but that will likely be going downhill over the next couple of days. And our storm tracker, Jim Cantori, joins us live from there right after the break.
This is Fracture. Just upload an image, place your order, and it'll show up at your door, beautifully printed directly on glass. And this isn't just another frame, not just another canvas. This is new. This is a Fracture. Visit FractureMe.com and print one today.
Who's ready for a great ride? Ready to work out my constipation? It's been so long.
Let's not talk about constipation.
Come on, everybody, work it out.
Say no more to occasional constipation with clinically proven effective Seneca. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money back.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life, posing a real threat to your comfort and safety. When the power goes out, you have no lights, no refrigeration, no heating or air conditioning. Your well or sump pump won't work. Your modern daily electronics are rendered useless. And what if the power's out for days or weeks? Are you prepared? You can be with a Generac home standby generator.
24 days we were without power. I had water, I had ice, I had coffee, I had air conditioner. I was able to stay here because of the Generac.
When an outage occurs, your Generac home standby generator automatically powers up, so your life goes on without disruption. You and your family are comfortable, safe, and secure. Generac generators run on your home's existing natural gas or propane. And Generac's standard Mobile Link remote monitoring system keeps you posted on operating status, maintenance updates, and more. Generac generators are designed, engineered, and purpose-built in the USA. Generac is the #1 manufacturer of home standby generators in the world. 8 out of 10 home generators are Generac, with thousands of satisfied customers.
Very good product. Very, very good reviews from everybody.
Prices start at just $19.99, and special financing is available with surprisingly affordable monthly payments.
Call now to schedule your free in-home assessment with one of Generac's 6,000 nationwide dealers. The call is free, the assessment is free, and there's no obligation to buy. And if you act now, receive a free 1,200-watt inverter generator or a 40-volt cordless blower, up to a $500 value. Call now, so the next time there's a power outage, your home powers up. Power your life with Generac. Call or go online to schedule your free in-home assessment today.
My digestive system used to make me feel sluggish, but now I take Metamucil every day. It traps and removes the waste that weighs me down, so I feel lighter. Try Metamucil and begin to feel what lighter feels like.
The world's first six-function multi-pro tailgate, available only on the next generation GMC Sierra. Step up to GMC and get over $10,000 total value on this next generation 2019 Sierra Crew Cab SLT. Or get 20% below MSRP on these 2019 Double Cab and SLE Crew Cab models with a traditional tailgate.
Work's more fulfilling, carpool's more fun. Snack time tastes fresher, glad I brought more than one.
Take the feeling with you. Sabra Snackers. Feel good food.
I just had Sabra hummus and now I feel good.
Welcome back to continuous coverage here on the Weather Channel with Hurricane Dorian. Just an impressive satellite view here. You can see a very well-defined eye with this major hurricane, this Category 4 storm that is now bearing down on the northwestern Bahamas. And this is the topic all up and down the southeast coast. Everyone eyes on Dorian right now as we are keeping a close eye on that forecast. And we have the team spread out all across Florida. And, of course, now all of this. Rain shower passed by. We've got some sunshine as well. But what is not so typical, and you'll see as we look around, we're at one of the turnpike stations, one of the turnpike plazas here, and you'll notice some people in these bright yellow vests. That is the turnpike strike team. They deploy these people when there is something going on, like possibly we need some evacuations, but also a holiday weekend when everyone might be trying to get some gas. So, that is what we're seeing here. There's about 80 to 100 of this turnpike strike team up and down the turnpike helping to direct the traffic at these gas stations. You see here some of the power trucks pulling in. Of course, we know we have power trucks coming in from all over the country, or at least across the southeast, to help in case the electricity really gets taken out. So Florida is prepared, and that has been the general tone. Liana, we're going to go ahead and send it back to you. We'll be keeping an eye on things here in Orlando. Yeah, Florida preparing, much of the southeast preparing, but also the Bahamas, bracing for potential catastrophic damage. Hurricane Dorian is threatening 10 to 15-foot storm surge. A hurricane warning is in effect in the northern Bahamas, and there is a hurricane watch in effect for the southern Bahamas. The Bahamas could feel Dorian's hit by tomorrow morning. Now, the Bahamas, no stranger to major hurricanes. Chris Warren explains the dangerous history of hurricanes on the islands.
Known for its resorts and beautiful beaches, the Bahamas includes 700 islands and keys, though only about 30 are inhabited. Stretching across more than 500 miles in the Atlantic, the northern Grand Bahama Island lies only 60 miles from the Florida coast. Roughly 400,000 people live in the Bahamas, more than half in the capital city of Nassau on Paradise Island. 75% of the country's economy is driven by tourism. But the country's low and flat terrain make it vulnerable to hurricanes. And since it stretches for hundreds of miles, these powerful storms may devastate one area while leaving others unharmed. On average, a hurricane passes the Bahamas roughly every 2 years, with a direct hit every 4. Though recent storms have hit the country hard, the worst of Hurricane Irma spared most of the Bahamas. But to the extreme south, Ragged Island lost the majority of its infrastructure during the Category 5 storm. In October 2016, Matthew made landfall on Grand Bahama Island as a Category 4 hurricane. It had winds of 130 miles an hour and an 8-foot storm surge, causing more than $400 million in damage. And in 2015, Hurricane Joaquin hit the southern islands as a Cat 4 with an 18-foot storm surge recorded on Long Island. During Joaquin, the U.S. cargo ship El Faro disappeared and sank near Crooked Island, killing all 33 crew members on board.
And of course, the Bahamian government is urging people to seek higher ground as Dorian encroaches across the area. Let's take a look at Dorian with the latest. It is still a Category 4 hurricane, 45 mile per hour winds associated with it. The pressure is at 944 millibars, and it's moving west at 12 miles per hour. We will be getting the new advisory in a matter of minutes here, but let's go ahead and show you what the alerts are looking for in the Bahamas. Hurricane warnings for much of Freeport, northern Bahamas, Nassau included in that, but we also have this hurricane watch in place. Now, you might be wondering what's the difference between the watch and the warning. There is a key word, and the timing is very key, depending on which one. The watch and the warning on the right. The watch has the word possible. You have the sustained winds with hurricane force winds, 74 plus mile per hour winds possible within the next 48 hours, whereas a hurricane is the winds, same speed, are expected within 36 hours. So there's higher confidence that is going to be happening with the warning. Now, of course, as we track with our future radar, Dorian's impact, of course, is getting closer and closer. Of the Bahamas, including parts of Freeport being impacted. And by Monday morning, again, this is a slow-moving storm. It is heading in straight towards Florida. Let's go to Florida now with Jim Cantori. Hey, Jim.
Yeah, guys, we're waiting the new advisory from the National Hurricane Center. That will come in around 11. Sometimes it's before, sometimes it's right at 11. Ken's been pretty good at getting that stuff out pretty early, of course. No question, we're going to still see a very strong, powerful hurricane, Cat 4 hurricane out there. The big question is, the one that many await, especially living on the coast, do they see a shift in that cone? And some areas in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina potentially coming out of that cone. We await that coming up within 20 minutes. All right, guys, again, looking above here at beautiful Stuart, Florida, looking over the St. Lucie River, which is high because of all the rain we've had this summer.
The Subaru Crosstrek. Dog tested, dog approved.
April 18th is National Piñata Day, but you don't need to hit a papier-mâché unicorn to get stuff you want. Just become an AARP member. Get health tips, learn about the latest tech, have nights out at local restaurants, and more. Get your AARP membership today.
You're a big deal to us, so we've got big deals for you. Build up your fall wardrobe during the Big Deal event at Men's Warehouse this Labor Day. Suits start at $179.99. Dress and woven shirts are 3 for $99.99. Plus, take an extra 40% off select clearance items. Only at Men's Warehouse.
You can't fake the goodness of real strawberries. The crunch of real almonds. How chocolatey chunks taste in cold milk. We keep it real. Because you can't fake delicious. Special K.
With all-day comfort for all-day fun, Depend FitFlex underwear features maximum absorbency, ultra-soft fabric, and new beautiful designs for your best comfort and protection guaranteed. Life's better when you're in it. Be there with Depend.
Liberty Mall customizes your car insurance, so you only pay for what you need.
I wish I could shake your hand.
Granted. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Discover new San Pellegrino Essenza, a twist of Mediterranean flavors with the gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino. Add a twist of flavor. San Pellegrino Essenza, tastefully Italian.
Remember imagination? Where anything could happen. Where sun-made raisins taste like sour-flavored mixed berries, watermelons, even strawberries. Where fun grows naturally for miles. Peppers can be smiles, and fruit snacks can simply be whole fruit. Sun-made sour raisin snacks. No added sugar, no fake colors, just great sour flavor. Imagine that.
Grab hold of a legendary DR Field and Brush Mower and put it to the test on your property. Nothing stops the DR. Thick grass and weeds, out-of-control brush, even 3-inch thick trees are no match for America's favorite brush mower. Engineered and built in the USA, this machine is meant to take a beating. Lock it in and rip it up. Power steering gives you fingertip control. And our tow-behind models offer the same brush-busting power, cutting up to 52 inches wide. DR celebrates 30 years of brush mowing with our limited edition camo model. Hurry before they're sold out.
Call 1-800-510-9014 for a free buyer's guide and DVD. Try a DR on your own property for 1 year. Free shipping is now in effect, and our easy financing plan lets you make low monthly payments. That's 1-800-510-9014. Online at drfieldbrush.com.
This is epic!
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got a severe weather threat. We are live on the ground. Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
All right, guys, all eyes on the National Hurricane Center website right now as we await the 11 a.m. advisory. We will give that to you immediately as soon as we get it. All right, as soon as they release it, actually. We get it immediately. So you will get the latest on them. And really, we're not going to see change in intensity. I mean, look at this visible. This is a steady state Category 4 monster here at 145 miles an hour. Do they go to 150 at the 11 a.m. advisory? That's a possibility because they've certainly measured winds out there in that vicinity. Do we see a change in the cone at 11 a.m. that potentially takes parts of Florida out of it? That is a possible scenario as well that we await on this advisory. Again, guys, looking at this from the air, this area that I'm in, beautiful Stewart, Florida here in Martin County. They call this the Treasure Coast, and it is a treasure. It's just a beautiful area here. This is St. Lucie River. This flows out of Lake Okeechobee, which, as if you're in Florida, you know is running high because of all the rain that we've had this summer. It has just been day in and day out of rain. Plus, you've got a king tide. So you've got a kind of a natural rise in the water because of the ocean, the proximity to the sun. All right, so that's what's going on here, the sun and the moon relationship. And that's causing the water to rise up as well. So those two things, and of course, potentially combined with a storm surge from Dorian, certainly have a lot of people on edge on the coastline. We can still have impacts, even with a system that's offshore. Okay, remember Matthew. Remember what I'm talking about in St. Augustine. Heck, remember Irma in St. Augustine, or even up toward the St. Johns River, where we coupled onshore flow with a foot of rain in that river basin. All right, let's find out and get a little insight as to what we may see at 11 o'clock on that new advisory from the Hurricane Center. Our hurricane expert, Dr. Greg Postel, joins us now to talk about this. Greg, would you be surprised or not to see some areas out of the cone that are in it now?
I would not be surprised, Jim. I mean, there have been some real trends in the data, and it's not just noise. It is a signal. But that, at the same time, even if the cone is shifted a bit, let's say, for example, farther to the east, doesn't remove the potential threat for Florida because it's still possible. Dorian makes a landfall in Florida, and even if it doesn't, it's still probably going to bring significant impacts because the winds extend outward, tropical storm force winds over 100 miles from the center.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, we'll check back in with you in just a bit, I believe. But let's go ahead and get in some of the questions that our viewers have been asking via social media using the hashtag hurricane questions. We have some questions here. This coming from Chase. Is it possible for Dorian to become a Category 5 hurricane? Yes, it's very possible. Dr. Postel, let's elaborate with that.
Yes, it is very possible that it becomes Category 5. But again, it's not far from that right now. So that's not a big ask. But the other thing is that the hurricane hunters are in there right now, and we're getting the real-time data information. And even when you correct for some of the data that they're finding, because sometimes it's a bit suspect, we're sampling winds. They're sampling winds of near 160 miles per hour in the northern eyewall. Now, whether or not they go ahead and sort of assimilate that in a way that brings us to a Cat 5 in the next advisory, I don't know. We'll see. But it certainly is possible to see it get that strong.
Yeah, and even if it's a high-end Category 4 or low-end Category 5.
Extremely damaging.
Exactly. They're going to be the same, very damaging either way. Here's a look at the hurricane hunters right now. And you can see that latest one right now in the tropical storm force winds. But even previously, we saw that jump.
Yeah,
as it spanned, as those hurricane hunters went through the entire storm.
This map ain't right, because I'm telling you, we saw some of those spikes in there over 100 or 157 miles per hour. So we'll correct that for you coming up in a little bit. But we have more questions. I think to go
let's go ahead and go to the second question. What side of the storm is going to be the strongest? That's coming in from Kevin. Yeah.
That is a tough call, because sometimes the strongest winds and the worst weather rotates around the center. It's not always on one side of it. But if you think about if this were to make a landfall, along and to the right of the center, you would most likely have that onshore wind, therefore, and have the worst of all the impacts from the ocean, the storm surge and everything like that. Yeah. So that's a side of the hurricane where the impacts might be more significant, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the winds are strongest always on that side. They sometimes swirl around inside of that.
Yeah, I mean, especially as we look at the span of the strong tropical storm force winds. Yep. I mean, even this is going to be tracking the center, but we can see that entire span work its way along and outside of this zone. So, I mean, we still have a lot of impacts to go.
We have a lot of impacts to sort of sort through and figure out who's going to get what. Next question.
Yeah. All right. What is a king tide? Brandy asks, and exactly how does it affect a hurricane at landfall? Does a king tide happen for everyone on the East Coast around the same time? Well, here we go. This is king tide defined, but it's a seasonal high tide cycle. So we are seeing these very high tides that happen about 3 to 4 times per year. But I think the key here is that these tides are actually worsened by these coastal storms, including hurricanes.
And if the hurricane flooding or surge or oceanic rise coincides and superposes on top of that king tide, we're in for more flooding trouble than otherwise.
Well, we want to still hear from you. Send us your questions via Twitter, Facebook, using the hashtag hurricane questions, and we'll get to them throughout the show. But here you go. There's that hashtag right there. But, of course, we are going to be answering them in the next hour as well. But let's go ahead and get the latest on Dorian, Dr. Postel.
This is still the 8 a.m. advisory. We're waiting for the Hurricane Center to update. It will come any moment, we think. But just a few hours ago, it was identified as 145 mile per hour, extremely dangerous Category 4 hurricane, closing in on the Bahamas. The Bahamas are going to get some of the worst possible weather with Dorian, with extremely high storm surge, life-threatening storm surge, and destructive winds well over 100 miles per hour in spots.
Keep it right here. Live team coverage continues as well as we track Dorian.
Take the floor somewhere unexpected. Everything you need is at your fingertips and at the Home Depot. On-trend styles with innovations to make it pet-proof, make it life-proof, make it waterproof, make it beautiful. And the Home Depot has everything you need to make it yours. Today is the day for doing it, with even lower prices right now on vinyl plank, laminate, and tile, only from the Home Depot.
Our tradition for my football team is we dress up, shirt and tie. I had a tie, but I didn't know how to tie it. Usually I would have my dad help me when he was deployed. I'm thinking, don't worry about it. My grandma should know.
He says, can you tie a tie? And I'm like, no. But we're on our way to Chick-fil-A.
I recognize them because they came into our store so much. Miss Bertha, Mr. Terrence, I'm like, of course, I'll help them out and show them how to tie a tie.
It wasn't just the tie, it's what was in your heart.
It's my pleasure. Doing good, man. You got it.
So, Kim, you going for a big Drive Safe and Save discount?
Yep, using the app. I've been quite vigilant.
Sharon says step on it. The meeting started.
Okay, write her back.
Dear Sharon, don't mess with my discount.
Faster, Mommy, I gotta go to the bathroom.
I do too, honey, but we're going to hold it for Mommy's discount. Easy.
But you're in labor.
Don't mess with my discount!
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm. You know that look? That life of the party look. Walk it off look. 1 more mile look. Reply all look. Own your look with fewer lines. There's only one Botox cosmetic. It's the only one FDA approved to temporarily make frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better. The effects of Botox cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Do not receive Botox cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow, eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Tell your doctor about your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. So give that just saw a puppy look, and whatever that look is. Look like you with fewer lines. Text now to get your exclusive offer.
I'm Jimmy Dean, and I wish I could tell you how I feel about a morning like this. And that includes a good hearty breakfast. You need something to kind of warm my whole body up and get it going. It's a great way to kick off your day.
There's just no easy answers. Am I too old to start skateboarding?
Chew on it. Twizzlers.
All right, breaking now, guys. It is Hurricane Dorian, a 150-mile-per-hour hurricane. Yes, it is on the precipice of Cat 5. Will it get there? That's yet to be determined. But either way, this is still a very dangerous hurricane that is heading toward the Bahamas and then potentially close to the coast. Now, I'm waiting for my update on my phone through here in terms of what's changed in the cone. Oh, there it is right there. Okay. So we still have parts of Florida in the cone. All right. It looks like, West Palm, south to Fort Lauderdale, Miami, out of the cone right now. Orlando, you're still in it. Jacksonville, Savannah, Charleston, and obviously up toward Wilmington, North Carolina, and now the Outer Banks, including even parts of Southern Virginia, in the cone. They have not moved the track at all from the Bahamas. So now you're talking about a 150-plus-mile-an-hour hurricane coming through the Abacos and coming across Grandma Highland. Look at this. From 8 a.m. Sunday, literally to 8 p.m. on Monday, we are talking about hurricane conditions in the Bahamas. What a disaster that could be. Oh, our hearts are really just dropping right now, just looking at that track and knowing what this thing is right now just off the coast. So not surprised at the 150, guys, because of what we saw from the hurricane hunters. They were out there. They've seen consistent winds, 145, 150 miles per hour. So I'm not surprised at all that they jacked that up a little bit. Really not surprised at all at what has happened either with the cone. I mean, we're still not out of it. We're, even though this is a track cone and the guidance has shifted east, this is significant. We've seen that in the track over the past 24 hours now with this curvature. But be ready for impacts on the East Coast. This could be a big hurricane. All right, Dr. Greg Postel, let's get your thoughts on this and anything that you've seen change-wise. My thinking is you're probably not surprised at too much of what we got here. But that's just my thought.
No, I mean, I think the increased intensity, reflects what the hurricane hunters have been finding. And some of the data they were sampling in the northern eye wall suggested maybe it's even a bit stronger than that, although it's hard to assimilate one piece of information from a whole bunch of others. But I'll tell you, the hurricane hunters sampled near 160-mile-per-hour winds there, and that is very significant. So the intensity, regardless of exactly where it is on a few miles per hour, either here or there, Jim, is an extremely destructive Category 4, almost Category 5 hurricane closing in on the Bahamas right now, Jim.
All right, track-wise, sadly, not a big shift over the Bahamas. Great Abaco, the Abacos and Grand Bahama Island still right in the teeth of this thing. And Greg, it's at that point that we start to slow it down. So the fact that it's still over water really, it may not weaken all that much there.
No, that is a good point. You're over some very warm and in some places some very deep warm water, which will limit the, sometimes when hurricanes move over warm water and they stall out, they can churn up some cooler water beneath it and then allow it to weaken. But the water here, especially near the Gulf Stream, is pretty deep as well. That impact may be a little bit less than in other places. But you're right. The hurricane slows down, and then the track has nudged it now farther to the east than prior forecasts. That is important to know. The shift and the trend is real, but it does not eliminate completely the chance even for a landfall in Florida or in Georgia. So we can't let our guard down. Nobody is out of the woods yet. And really, no one is off the hook, Jim. We've just seen some trends, and it's a signal. It's not noise. It is a signal that we're trying to recover from all the information that is flying in at us left and right. Jim.
And we see the Outer Banks in it now. And that's the other thing, too. Once it slows and then does start to turn, don't you think, Greg, it will accelerate? It'll start to accelerate as it comes off to the north and east, past South Carolina, past North Carolina, or potentially skimming or coming on shore there.
Yes, the deceleration occurs here as it goes moving west to the north, and then once it goes north to the east, then it accelerates in association with some stronger westerlies coming in. So imagine I think what you're getting at is that the impacts, whatever they may end up being for example, the Carolinas, assuming it does do that, will be shorter lived than they might otherwise be, for example, in the Bahamas, where they're going to get devastating blow from this thing with high-end destructive wind and significant storm surge with a slow-moving, almost Cat 5. Whereas by up here, it is beginning to move a little bit more quickly. Jim.
In terms of the intensity at 150, and they have measured winds even stronger than that, as we go toward the Bahamas, and get in there in the next 24 hours. Could we go to Cat 5? I just think that's one of the questions people at home would want to know. I mean, you're talking about 157 or higher with the winds. Is that possibility there? We're not too far from it right now. We got a high-end Cat 4.
Sure. I mean, why not? I mean, they're sampling some winds that suggest maybe it is, but there's probably a whole lot of information to sort through and to really take a more measured approach to the actual trend in the intensity. So, yes, this thing could spike into Cat 5, but a few miles, Jim, per hour here or there is not going to really matter at this point. Whether it's 160 or 150, the damage is real, and it is unfortunately coming for some of these locations in the northern Bahamas. We have to watch out in this poor part of the world, in this part of the Atlantic, because very, very destructive hurricane is going to be moving through and slowing down, bringing extremely high storm surge, in some cases potentially over 15 feet, and of course those destructive winds well over 100 miles per hour, and maybe even in some cases closer to 150 miles per hour. So that is a remarkable tempest that is unfortunately going to be moving through the Bahamas in a short order in the next, I would say later tomorrow or tomorrow night and into early Monday. The northwestward track that Dorian had been taking last week has now turned around in that direction. That unwanted turn to the left or to the west has happened. It was well forecasted by the models. This was the relatively predictable part of the track of Dorian as it began to bend toward the west. We all kind of knew that. The models were in consensus, essentially, saying that. And that is because the steering currents, as they are set up now, are really allowing for Dorian to not take a northward turn anywhere in this part of the Atlantic. The northward turn is going to take place, unfortunately, when it is much closer to the United States. For now, it is west or basically just a little bit north of due west, and that is going to remain the case for the next, say, I don't know, probably another day or so. Here we go. Let's talk about the impacts as best we can, because it's too early to talk about the specifics. But if you were to take the National Hurricane Center's track for the center, remember that, the center of Dorian, knowing that there still could be shifts either way, and there still could be like some trends in the data that we have yet to sort through. But let's just say that's the case. Tropical storm force winds extend outward over 100 miles in some directions. And that could very well still, even if the center is that far offshore, could still bring tropical storm force winds to the Florida coast. And of course, with a northeast wind, that would include coastal flooding. So that is something to consider, because even if it's that far offshore, we are going to be dealing with potentially significant impacts in Florida. But then we have to talk about areas farther to the north, because now it sure seems like that what we've been talking about now for days, that option of going I want to pay very close attention to the movement of Dorian, because at a very high intensity, it may very well take a close encounter, if not a landfall. Some of the factors that may be associated with the change in the last day or so of the track, associated with this little ripple in the jet stream, this little anomaly, a potential vorticity anomaly, that's a fancy word for a little jet stream dip that we're watching. Guys, models are now, I think, looking at it a bit more clearly than they did before, and are now showing it in a few days' time over here over the southeastern U.S., which would impart a bit of a sort of counterclockwise flow, setting up shop in that part of the country. That may be one of the factors, not all of them, but one of them, why we're seeing that bend in the track and that trend. So here we go. Here's some of the other pieces of model data. And in fact, it's probably safe to say that the Hurricane Center is on the even westward side of the new envelope of track models that are coming in. Not all of them. And keep in mind, there are some possibilities that bring Dorian very close to, if not onshore in Florida. That is still a possibility. But the likelihood of that happening, Jim, appears a bit less as we go forward in time. But again, no one is out of the woods. And with nearly a Cat 5, everyone needs to pay attention very closely. Jim, back to you.
No, no question about that. A lot of people, though, are breathing a sigh of relief. Some of them out here now, as you can see from our drone shot, enjoying really what is a beautiful day here in Stuart, Florida, right on the St. Lucie River. Lots of folks out and about, but of course, it would be a lot busier. There would be a concert out here. There would be tarps over here so people can get some protection from the sun, right down where we're standing here on this deck. So, all those things have been removed in preparation here in Martin County for Dorian, because think about it. 36 hours ago, we were at ground zero with this thing, all right, in terms of it just coming into or just to our south. So we've seen a lot of people moving in and around Florida, especially off the East Coast, essentially from Daytona, the Space Coast, down into the Treasure Coast here, and moving away from that area, because that's the key. You get out of the way of the surge. Some of them have gone to the Keys. Some of you have gone to Naples and Fort Myers. Some of you have gone to Orlando. Some have gone up into the Panhandle. And a lot of people actually had the luxury of changing their vacation plan. So it's not a total washout for them. In other words, if we had to deal with Dorian, they just chose other places in Florida to go. So hopefully they're getting along with that, enjoying their Labor Day weekend. But others, if you're watching us from the Outer Banks, you've just been put in the cone. If you're watching us, again, from the coast of North Carolina or South Carolina, you need to be on alert as well and do what the folks here in Florida did. They prepared 2 days ago. They got it out of the way. And you know what? Like the governor said to us when we talked to him earlier, we're happy at the preparation right now. A lot of people did it. And if this thing misses us, great. We were prepared anyway. No stress, no problems. And hopefully that will be the way that it goes. All right, let's go on to Orlando with Felicia Combs and talk a little bit about this area because, of course, Felicia, this is the theme parks. This is Disney World. This is where everybody wants to bring their family on vacation, even on a Labor Day. What's interesting is I wonder, with the number of people that may have canceled their trips, were there people maybe compensating going into Orlando that were evacuating? So was there kind of a give and take there because of that?
Well, you know, Jim, we've been at one of the service plazas along the turnpike, which would be an evacuation route if necessary. And we've talked to people all morning, and most of those people have said they're either evacuating from South Florida. We talked to one woman who was evacuating from Cocoa Beach. Now, the mandatory evacuation, she said, for where she lives and one of the barrier islands, not starting until tomorrow, but she wanted to beat the rush. And we've seen a lot of people out here kind of trying to beat that big rush. I'm actually here with Michael. Michael is from this area. So, Michael, how are you preparing for Dorian?
I think kind of just the standard stuff. We're stocking up on groceries. We've got a generator for the house, so getting gas in the cars. And we feel like Orlando's going to be in a pretty good position, so we're not panicking or leaving or anything like that. Just kind of battening down the hatches.
So have you found it rough to find gas? Because I did see somewhere earlier that Orlando is about 50% out of gas for a lot of the stations. Was it rough?
Well, luckily I've got a Prius, and I filled it up about 3 days ago. It's been really difficult, even near our house. Like, the gas stations have long lines. They're metering people getting in. So, yeah, it's been tough.
Have you found that this experience that you're having today has been way different than getting gas, say, near your house?
This is fantastic. I'm glad I came down the turnpike today. So, had I known, I'd have come here every day for in the past couple days. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's great to know. And you said, so are you all prepared, even though you know you're inland, you know you're in Orlando? Would you say you're prepared to hunker down for several days if necessary?
Food, water, power. Yeah, absolutely. We're good. We're good to go for the next week if we have to. So, and I think this storm, people have prepared more and sooner than what I've seen in the past. So it's been an interesting change.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've seen that too. I think people are really prepared. Is that the feeling that you're getting with most of the people you know?
Yeah, and I'm surprised by it because normally Floridians, especially in Orlando, they wait till the last minute. But this week, it seems like starting on Tuesday, Wednesday, people are, you start to see the grocery stores get low, gas get low. So I think people are preparing for it.
Well, that's what we like to hear. Thank you, Michael. I hope you have a nice time riding it out. So, yeah. So we're going to send it back to Liana in the studio now. She's going to talk about the Bahamas as this massive storm edges closer to the northwestern Bahamas.
Yeah, great news there. Felicia Combs live in Orlando, Florida. But of course, like she mentioned, the Bahamas bracing for the potential catastrophic damage that Hurricane Dorian is bringing. And of course, 10 to 15 foot storm surge is one of the impacts. Hurricane warnings in effect for the northern Bahamas, as well as a hurricane watch in effect for the southern Bahamas. Now, the Bahamas itself could feel Dorian's hit by tomorrow morning. So you can see images of how they are preparing as we take a look at the warning and the watch. So warning in the purple up here. Nassau, Freeport included in that, and the watch including parts of southern Bahamas. And of course, as we dictate and explain what that watch versus the warning is, there's two key points I want to make. With the watch right here, the winds of 74 plus mile per hour winds, hurricane force, that's possible within a 48-hour period. However, with a warning, these winds are expected within a shorter time frame, within 36 hours. So, and it's a higher confidence. So, of course, as we time out that threat, moving our map into motion, you'll see Dorian start to encroach across the Bahamas, getting closer and closer. We are going to see impacts of winds and waves and storm surge ahead of that as well. But then we're going to get into Sunday morning and even midday Sunday, where it's slowly making its way through the northern tip of the Bahamas. But, of course, we have the latest advisory to discuss. Dr. Postel, take it away.
Yeah, Liana, the intensity has come up a little bit in the most recent advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Now, 150 miles per hour. In fact, some of the hurricane hunters in there are finding winds even a bit stronger than that. So we are dealing with an extremely dangerous Category 4, almost Category 5 hurricane, and it continues to move west or just slightly north of due west. The new official track from the Hurricane Center takes it on that path, and note that Florida is not out of the cone, nor is Georgia and the Carolinas. Everyone up the coast is not off the hook. We want to hear from you, though. Send us your questions and send it to our Facebook with the hashtag Hurricane Questions. We will be right back.
Just between us, you know what's better than mopping? Anything. At the end of a long day, it's the last thing I want to do. Well, I switched to Swiffer Wet Jet, and it's awesome. It's an all-in-one, so it's ready to go when I am. The cleaning solution actually breaks down dirt and grime, and the pad absorbs it deep inside, so it prevents streaks and heaves better than my old mop. Plus, it's safe to use on all my floors, even wood. Glad I got that off my chest. And the day off my floor.
Try WetJet with a money-back guarantee.
Try a drive-up at Target, delivered to your car door so you can do more. More refill. More recharge. More relax. Target run and done.
V8 has 30 calories. For that many calories, you could have 9 veggie chips. These are more chip than veggie. While V8 is a snack you can veg out on. V8, the original plant-powered drink. Veg up.
The world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate, available only on the next generation GMC Sierra. Step up to GMC and get over $10,000 total value on this next generation 2019 Sierra Crew Cab SLT. Or get 20% below MSRP on these 2019 Double Cab and SLE Crew Cab models with a traditional tailgate.
What does it mean to be your own boss? It means you're following your dream. It also means you don't have a lot of time.
Next Insurance is here to help by putting business insurance at your fingertips. Go to next-insurance.com and get insured anytime, anywhere.
Stouffer's lasagna with meat and sauce has 2 times the beef of the leading meat sauce lasagna. That's double the tender ground beef baked into every cheesy, mouth-watering bite. When it comes to irresistible taste, more is always more. Stouffer's.
Got bugs in your house? Stop using traditional insecticides to get rid of them. Get Zevo. Deadly for bugs, safe to use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo is bioselective. It targets nervous system receptors only active in insects, not in people or pets. Zevo is powerful. It contains essential oils that are natural enemies of bugs. It doesn't need harsh chemicals to work. Available now at select Target and Home Depot stores.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night Hero Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha. The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness. During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the Night Bright button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage-eating critters or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click now and get Night Hero binoculars with laser illumination technology for just $39.99. You'll also get a protective carrying case, yours free. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling Atomic Beam flashlight, just pay separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. You can get it all, but you have to order now.
Call 1-800-790-9910. That's 1-800-790-9910. Or visit BuyNightHero.com. That's BuyNightHero.com. Order now.
This is epic!
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
We've got a severe weather threat. We are live on the ground. Right now, it's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
This enough. Now is the time to prepare for the southeast for Dorian's arrival. Now a dangerous 150-mile-per-hour hurricane, just shy of a Cat 5. Here's what we know right now. NHC, the National Hurricane Center, extremely dangerous Dorian poses significant threat to Florida and northwestern Bahamas. Watches may be required for parts of Florida's east coast. Later today, SeaWorld Orlando is scheduled to close at 6 p.m. tomorrow night, and Orlando International Airport will cease operations at 2 a.m. Monday morning. And with Dorian closing in on the southeast coast, parts of Brevard County, Florida, are now under evacuation mandatory orders. Joining us from Rockledge, Florida, is Don Walker. He's the Communications Director for the Brevard County Emergency Management. Thank you so much for joining us, Don. And talk to us about what areas are specifically under evacuation orders.
Yeah, sure, Leona. We've got our barrier islands evacuation orders in place for the folks that live out there. And just with a quick survey today, we're not seeing nearly enough homes boarded up there that we had hoped that we would see. So we're hoping people are taking advantage that this thing's still playing cat and mouse with us, to take advantage of the time they have today to go ahead and get those evacuation plans in order and head out starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. That gives them plenty of time to be in place where they need to be come Monday. We're also people that live in flood-prone areas, people that live in manufactured homes or structures that they consider might be unsafe. If they're not sure that they're in a safe place, they need to plan to start evacuating tomorrow morning.
So, discuss, are there shelters set up already?
We are working on that right now. The county will be setting up some shelters tomorrow. We're going to make that announcement soon, within the next 24 hours anyway, or even sooner than that, probably more like 12 hours, just so people know where they can go on the mainland and be safe through this duration of this system.
And of course, timing is everything. Since it is Labor Day weekend, you may have a lot of tourists in town. What do you advise them to do?
Well, hopefully they're in a hotel that's got a generator so they can, get through the storm without, and be comfortable. But, hotels are fine. If they're in a concrete structure, that's good. But if they are in a place they don't feel like they would be safe, our shelters are not open just to people that live on the barrier islands and live in our county. So we would make room for them as well. We will have plenty of room once we make those shelters available.
And one of the locations that's on a barrier island, the Kennedy Space Center, any special evacuations underway for them?
Well, I know they've got their essential personnel that'll be at the center through the storm system. The other folks will be doing like everybody else. They'll either be hunkered down at home or they'll be probably staying with loved ones somewhere else inland.
What about traffic concerns? Are you putting anything into motion for traffic?
Well, we haven't set up, that would be handled through the Florida Department of Transportation. They may ease the toll situation where people can, go down the turnpike without having to stop and pay tolls. But they haven't made that decision just yet, or haven't made that announcement. The evacuations that we're calling for, I don't think are going to generate mass traffic jams. And what we always encourage people to, in any system, is don't evacuate for hundreds of miles, evacuate for tens of miles. If you can get to a concrete brick structure that's on the mainland, that's sturdy, then that's as far as you need to go.
Absolutely. And any other last words of advice that you have for residents as well as the visitors in Brevard County?
Well, the concern is that this morning, the storm system's moved a little more to the east, northeast. And so, we just want our residents of Brevard County to know you've got to go ahead and continue to get those preparations taken care of. Be prepared. Don't become complacent. We're not out of the woods by any stretch. We're still looking at tropical force and even hurricane force winds that could be in our area over the next couple of days and into midweek or later. So this is not going to be a quick down and dirty thing. This is something that could be a long-standing, hurricane.
Absolutely. Don Walker, Brevard Communications Director with the Emergency Management Agency. Thank you so much for taking time out of a very busy time for you. All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about other places that are going to be impacted even more inland, like Orlando. That's where we find our Felicia Combs. And Felicia, how serious are people there taking this hurricane?
Thanks, Liana. Yeah, people are taking it very seriously. In fact, we're at one of the turnpike stations along the turnpike, one of the gas stations in Orlando. And just about everyone we've talked to have been either from the East Coast or South Florida evacuated. We talked to one woman earlier who said she lives in one of the barrier islands near Cocoa Beach, and she's heading north into southern Georgia.
We live in a barrier island on Cocoa Beach. It's like a 250-foot little stretch of sand between the river and the ocean, and regardless of where this storm goes, we're going to have a lot of rain and flooding and everything, so we have decided to evacuate up to South Georgia where my dad is.
And she also mentioned that they went through Matthew and they evacuated from Matthew as well. And, of course, a lot of people comparing now Dorian to that track that Matthew ended up taking. And she said they did see some damage from Matthew. And she also mentioned they would rather evacuate and nothing happen than stay and get trapped. And I think that's what we're trying to tell the whole southeast coast at this point as we watch and see exactly what Dorian is doing. And that has been the general feel that we felt here in Orlando. People are taking this seriously. And, of course, that's like what we like to see when we're talking about a major storm like Dorian.
The Lab is brought to you by State Farm. There for when things go wrong, but also here to help life go right.
Wish you were here to see how bright the human spirit can shine. To see that no matter what nature does, people will do more. With one of the industry's largest catastrophe response teams, State Farm will always be among the first to arrive and the last to leave. To help show that human nature is greater than nature,
So look for the chance to win free fuel for a year. That's one of thousands of prizes in the Shell Great Gas Giveaway. Your rewards numbers are automatically entered when they fill up at Shell. Managing type 2 diabetes? Audrey's on it. Eating right and staying active?
On it.
Audrey thinks she's doing all she can to manage her type 2 diabetes and heart disease, but is her treatment doing enough to lower her heart risk? Maybe not. Jardians can reduce the risk of cardiovascular death for adults who also have known heart disease, so it could help save your life from a heart attack or stroke, and it lowers A1C.
Jardians can cause serious side effects, including dehydration, genital yeast or urinary tract infections, and sudden kidney problems. Ketoacidosis is a serious side effect that may be fatal. A rare but life-threatening bacterial infection in the skin of the perineum could occur. Stop taking Jardians and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of this bacterial infection, ketoacidosis, or an allergic reaction. Do not take Jardians if you are on dialysis or have severe kidney problems. Taking Jardians with sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar.
Lower A1C and lower risk of a fatal heart attack?
On it with Jardian.
Ask your doctor about Jardians.
Book now, enjoy free unlimited open bar and more. No waiting for this line. Feel free. You know that look? That life of the party look. Walk it off look. One more mile look. Reply all look. Own your look with fewer lines. There's only one Botox cosmetic. It's the only one FDA approved to temporarily make frown lines, crow's feet, and forehead lines look better. The effects of Botox cosmetic may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness may be a sign of a life-threatening condition. Do not receive Botox cosmetic if you have a skin infection. Side effects may include allergic reactions, injection site pain, headache, eyebrow, eyelid drooping, and eyelid swelling. Tell your doctor about your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects. So get that just on puppy look, and whatever that look is. Look like you with fewer lines. Text now to get your exclusive offer.
What is your... Sorry. What happened again?
After 10 years, we've covered a lot of miles. Good thing I got a Subaru.
Love is out there. Find it in the Subaru Crosstrek.
Get 0% during the Subaru A Lot to Love event. To be their best, kids need good nutrition and practice. Lots of practice. Get them started right with Carnation Breakfast Essentials. It has protein plus vitamins and minerals to help kids be their best. Carnation Breakfast Essentials.
Welcome back to the continuous coverage of Hurricane Dorian on the cusp of being a Category 5 storm, as our Category 4, very strong Cat 4 as of that last update. All across the southeast, all eyes on Dorian, from Florida to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. We are watching you. We are talking to you right now. The forecast of this storm has been very fluid, and that has been something that forecasters have been mentioning over the past several days, and it remains fluid as we've seen a bit of a more eastward shift, but we cannot stress enough, if you are in that cone, especially from Florida north through North Carolina, we want you to really be paying attention to this storm. This is a very dangerous storm, and as mentioned, on the cusp of being a Category 5. So a fluid forecast, but I will tell you one thing. People here in Orlando have been taking this seriously. We're at one of the stations, one of the service stations along the turnpike, and it has been pretty busy all morning. People have been stopping in and fueling up, and most of the people that we have talked to have been evacuees out of South Florida, out of some of the barrier islands on the east coast of Florida, and everyone is saying it's been the same feel. People are taking this really seriously. Now, I spoke to one man from the Orlando area, and he did say that in other places closer to his home, it's been really rough to get gas. But here in particular, it's been very, very smooth. They did have the Turnpike Strike team out here, and they were helping to guide people through. We've had multiple Florida Highway Patrol officers here watching things. So this has just been really, really smooth here. And, you know, I would say everyone is taking this seriously, and our hurricane expert, Dr. Greg Postel, probably for a very, very good reason, I would say they're taking it seriously. This is a strong storm, and no one knows exactly what Dorian's going to do.
Felicia, you're exactly right, and that's why no one is off the hook right now. We've seen some of those trends in the guidance, in the models, and in the forecast, maybe a bit farther to the east, and that is real, but that doesn't eliminate the potential for this thing still making a landfall, for example, in Florida, or areas farther to the north. 150-mile-per-hour Category 4 hurricane, extremely dangerous hurricane, now closing in on the Bahamas. Destructive winds and incredible storm surge will likely move through that region in about 36 hours or so as the hurricane continues its westward assault on those regions. And then it will probably turn toward the north. That would be Dorian. As it slows down somewhere inside of this area in red, the center will likely track northward and then eventually begin to pick up some speed and move northeastward. This is the latest forecast. If you've been watching very closely, yes, indeed, it has moved westward, but note that there is still some opportunity for Dorian to move on the left side of that region and impact significantly Florida, and then areas, of course, in Georgia and the Carolinas as well. So please, everybody, all the way from Key West, Miami, and Cape Hatteras, watch this thing very closely. It is so dangerous, and you want no part of it. It is moving now steadily toward the west, maybe just slightly north of due west, closing in on the Bahamas, where we now expect storm surge 10 to 15 feet at least. So many places, the inundation levels will send them underwater, with the winds over 100 miles per hour, and in some cases a lot higher than that. Because I can tell you, the hurricane hunters have been in there all morning long, and in some places of the eye wall have found winds closer to 160 miles per hour. This is remarkable. What we've got now is a storm that is doing its unwanted turn toward the west. It was last week moving that way. Now it has begun that westward turn, moving in that direction steadily. The reason why is because the overall flow pattern in the atmosphere, as expected, has kind of allowed that to happen. We've got that sort of east wind at many levels, basically forcing Dorian in that direction, not giving it opportunity to move northward now, far away from anybody. That is not going to happen. For the next day or so at least, it is going to continue to move toward the west. And that, I would say, has been the most predictable part of the track. I mean, models are really good at telling us that it is going to turn west. The question then has always been, what after that? How close to the United States or the Bahamas is it going to get? And what about areas farther to the north of the Carolinas, for example? Will we be dealing with hurricane conditions there? Well, let's start with the official Hurricane Center's track, which is right here, the most recent one. Notice that, yes, it does indeed expect the center to remain offshore. That's not to say it can't move in another way. We know this will move around a little bit going forward. But let's just take that. Notice that the tropical storm force winds extend outward over 100 miles. So even still, if the center were to move like that, we would bring high-impact weather into Florida in areas nearby with tropical storm force winds likely, and an onshore wind bringing some coastal flooding. But we've also talked about, for a long time, for many days, we've said here that the door is open still for Dorian to go northward and potentially even make its initial landfall farther to the north over the Carolinas. That appears now more likely than it has been in the last couple of days, in part, perhaps, because of a little ripple in the jet stream that is right here, right now, that over the early part of next week may find itself right there, and that may try to direct Dorian northward and then out to sea. We have yet to sort of safely say that is definitely going to be the case, but guys, the trends are good, but again, once more, nobody is off the hook. We'll be right back with much more on here.
This program brought to you by Lowe's. Do it right for less with huge Labor Day savings.
Lowe's is here with what you need to make refreshing updates throughout your home. And with Labor Day savings too, with up to 40% off select appliances. And $15 to $45 off paint and stain. Do it right for less. Start with Lowe's.
Do your countertops look like this? There's never enough space for power outlets. Introducing Socket Shelf by Sharper Image, the incredible new wall outlet expander that adds a shelf to any outlet for clutter-free counters. No installation required. Just plug it in to power it up. Stop wrestling with those tangled, messy wires. Socket Shelf by Sharper Image features a built-in storage shelf, keeping all your electronics safe, organized, and fully charged. And it quadruples your power with 6 outlets and 2 USB ports. Turn an ordinary outlet into the ultimate charging powerhouse. Socket Shelf locks securely in place to any outlet, guaranteeing any item on the shelf stays safe. Use in the bathroom to keep kids' countertops clean and everything at their fingertips. The handy shelf gives you extra space where you need it most, perfect for pedestal sinks. Add extra power and storage
storage in the kitchen. Electronics stays safe and off the counters during food prep. It's the ultimate charging station in the bedroom, and it's strong enough for any handyman's workbench. With a 180-degree outlet design, you can plug in any device at any angle, and it has a built-in surge protector. Keeps electronics safe from unexpected jolts. Now, a socket shelf by Sharper Edwards is just $29.99. But wait, order now and get absolutely free shipping. That's right, free shipping. Socket shelf is UL listed with surge protection, so it's safe to use anywhere, even GFI outlets. And it comes with an unprecedented 5-year warranty. Socket shelf plus absolutely free shipping for just $29.99. And for the best offer yet, log on to find out how you can get socket shelf starting at the incredible low price of just $19.99 with free shipping. In stock for immediate delivery, so order now.
To order the socket shelf for $29.99 plus free shipping, call 1-800-430-9522. That's 1-800-430-9522. Or order online at socketshelf.com. That's socketshelf.com. Order now.
This is my body of
proof of less joint pain and clearer skin. Proof that I can fight psoriatic arthritis.
with Humira. Humira targets and blocks a specific source of inflammation that contributes to both joint and skin symptoms. It's proven to help relieve pain, stop further irreversible joint damage, and clear skin in many adults. Humira is the #1 prescribed biologic for psoriatic arthritis.
Humira can lower your ability to fight infections. Serious and sometimes fatal infections, including tuberculosis and cancers, including lymphoma, have happened, as have blood, liver, and nervous system problems, serious allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure. Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, upper infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Ask your rheumatologist about Humira.
Go to mypsaproof.com to see proof in action.
Wow, that's Ensure Max protein with high protein and 1 gram sugar.
It's a sit-up banana, bend at the waist. Try it. Keep it up. You'll get there.
30 grams of protein and 1 gram of sugar. Ensure Max Protein.
Welcome back to our continuous coverage of Hurricane Dorian, a major Category 4 hurricane on the cusp of being a Cat 5. The last update, winds around 150 miles per hour. That is very close to being a Category 5 designation. This is a textbook storm that you're seeing here on the satellite. Well-defined, the eye wall. We're getting the stadium effect. We're seeing that storm is venting itself. So, these storms, especially these major hurricanes, are like machines. And there are certain telltale signs that you can tell when this machine is operating correctly. And that is what we're seeing with Hurricane Dorian. And, not out of the realm of possibility that we could see Dorian become a Category 5 storm. The current forecast is looking at as a Cat 4. But all eyes from Florida to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, watching closely this storm as that track, that cone, has continuously shifted a little bit farther to the eastward. Here in Orlando, at one of the gas station service plazas along the turnpike, of course, the turnpike would become an evacuation route if necessary. And a lot of people we've seen here today have said that they are evacuating. And, some people are saying that, even with this storm possibly shifting east, they'd rather be safe than sorry.
I've lived in Florida the majority of my life. I'm a Hurricane Andrew survivor, so we've dealt with storms in the past, and it's better to be wrong in evacuating than wrong in staying in position.
And I just want to echo that again, as we do now have the entire southeast of the U.S. worrying about this storm. It's better to be wrong and evacuate than to stay and risk it. Now, we've seen a lot of people out here in Orlando making preparations. We've seen waves of people coming in at this plaza station, and all of them have echoed the same thing. It's pretty calm here along the turnpike, getting gas here. Historically, the plazas along the turnpike never run out of gas. The only time these actually close is when the weather gets so bad that they need to send their own employees home. So running out of gas at this particular station is not a worry. And compared to other places in Orlando, this is certainly much calmer than, say, some places within the city, Rihanna.
Yeah, absolutely. Better to be safe than sorry, right? Felicia Combs live in Orlando, Florida. But as you prepare for Hurricane Dorian, preparations should also include your pet. But sometimes you have to leave in a hurry, and furry family members can get left behind. Thankfully, there's an animal center in South Carolina that's here to help. Our Alex Wilson has more.
The destruction of a hurricane is not only terrifying to you, but to your pets. During a disaster, family members can be separated and stranded. That's when help comes in. The Brevard County Animal Center. Their mission? To reunite families.
When the pet comes in, we scan for microchips, we look for identification, we look at the animal, we photograph it, looking for any signs of injury or illness. They receive a vaccine, which will offer more protection for diseases. All of that is documented, and then all that information is put into our Facebook page and into our county website so that people can look on there and see if the pet's here.
Although linking owners and pets isn't always guaranteed, the process becomes easier if the animal is previously identified.
If people will put identification on their pets, that's the best way that we can get in touch with them. If nothing else, get a light colored collar and a Sharpie. Put your cell phone number on there so we can reunite your pet with you. That's the number one way to reduce the anxiety of a pet owner while their animal is missing.
To have a chip is so much easier because sometimes they may end up in other communities somehow, some way. If there is, that just makes life so much easier. If not, people may never find their pet again, and that's just horrible.
Right before a hurricane, most of these animals will be moved to a different location to make room for the incoming pets.
Generally, we wouldn't keep animals here for longer than probably a couple of months. We would look at transferring somewhere down the road to other facilities.
So if you're a pet owner and you're in the path of the next big storm, the experts have this advice.
Make a plan and activate that plan. Test it. Identify your pets. Make sure you have your records with you. Make sure you have your medications. The same things that people are trying to get the message to people to do also applies to your pets.
Absolutely. Got to take care of our furry, and even one of our viewers on Twitter tweeted me, our scaly friends, including one of our reptile pets as well. Make sure you have a way to get them to safe place as well. All right, let's continue to time out Hurricane Dorian as it approaches the Bahamas and into the southeast. We're looking at the Bahamas seeing the first signs of tropical storm force winds up to 73 miles per hour. Oh, that's going to be reaching Sunday 8 a.m., pushing through much of the day through Sunday evening. Then it's reaching Miami and the southern tip of Florida by 8 a.m. Monday morning, continuing its slow move up the east coast through Wednesday morning. So you can see that track. Of course, the winds are going to be pushing in ahead of the main fault and the main core of the storm. But as we work our way through our future radar, 6 a.m. is slowly reaching the Bahamas, and then Dorian continues to work its way through 8 p.m. Sunday morning. Continuing coverage of Dorian with our live team coverage out in the field.
Storm Tracks, brought to you by Purina, your pet, our passion.
My Benefit Superfood Blend had me feeling super healthy with salmon, cranberries. Oh, but we are not done yet. Here comes Superfood Wet with beef, salmon, and pumpkin. It's like a superfood sundae.
What?
Blend dry and wet recipes.
Delicious high-fiber raisin.
You want me to come with you?
I'm very sure.
Because I can. Good choices.
Good choices.
I am. Fiber scoop for digestive health.
Good choices never tasted so good. Raisin Bran.
Tasty olives, roasted pine nuts, this red pepper.
Spicy salad. Fresh pepper. Feel good food. Sabra hummus.
I just had Sabra hummus. I know I can do it.
Now's the time to find your color and everything to get started. Labor Day sales. Get a colorful new experience. $10 off 1 gallon cans and $40 off 3 and 5 gallon buckets of paint and stain for a limited time. At the Home Depot, say here or do.
The Joseph A. Bank Labor Day sale. Save up to 60% off everything. All suits on sale starting at $199. Dress and sport shirts for $29. Plus an extra 50% off clearance. The Labor Day sale. Only at Joseph A. Bank.
seen with over 10,000 total value in this next generation 2019 Sierra Coupe SLT. Or get 20% below MSRP in this 2019 double cab and SLE Coupe models with a traditional tailgate.
Both of these drinks have antioxidants. When you want to kickstart your day, you can choose the one with a full serving of vegetables, or you could go with 3 times the amount of sugar, if you're into that sort of thing. V8, the original plant-powered drink. Veg up.
Hey, my name is George, and I love the Chick-fil-A grilled nuggets. It's like me grilling at home. It tastes very similar to that, except the seasoning. I probably can't season it as well as Chick-fil-A does. The chicken's super tender, and honestly, the best nuggets I've ever tasted.
My name is Meredith, and the little thing I love about Chick-fil-A's mac and cheese is the oven-toasted, cheesy top layer. If home had a flavor, it would be Chick-fil-A's mac and cheese. I'm passionate about it.
Hi, Hunter Ellis here for Night View Binoculars by Atomic Beam. These binoculars let you see anything, even in pitch black darkness. Gotcha. The secrets are powerful wide-angle atomic beam laser that reveals objects up to 150 yards away, hidden by darkness. During the day, Night Hero gives you 10 times magnification. And when the sun goes down, press the night frame button to see clearly in the dark. Light up garbage in your crib, or spot thieves before they even get close. Call or click down and get Night Hero binoculars with laser illumination technology for just $39.99. You'll also get a protective carrying case. Yours free. Order right now and you can double it. Plus, get our best-selling Atomic Beam flashlight. Just pay separate fee. We'll even ship them to you free. You can get it all, but you have to order now. Call 1-800-790-9910. That's 1-800-790-9910. Or visit ByNightHero.com. It's ByNightHero.com. Order now.
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network, the Weather Channel.
Welcome back to continuous coverage of Hurricane Dorian. Look at that ominous sky there. That is not what you want to see when you're in the Bahamas. You want to think sunshine, palm trees. That is not at all what the northwestern Bahamas, specifically here in Alva Bay, saying right now. You can see this dark gray sky, and everyone in the Bahamas preparing for the impact of this major hurricane. And, you know, I'd say all across the Bahamas and even into the state of Florida, the preparations have been, everyone taking this very seriously. We've seen a lot of people really preparing. We are at a service plaza in Orlando along the turnpike. One thing I want to point out to you here, what we're not seeing at all at the service plaza, those bags covering the handles. Now, as of about 2 hours in Orlando, the stations in Orlando, the gas stations, were about 50% out of gas. So people were saying, who we talked to here, they were so glad to come here because it was much calmer, it's been a bit more regulated, and they're not seeing those bags over the handles that indicate, hey, we're out of gas. Also, another great thing about this that has helped with the lines, these long noses at these pumps at this particular service plaza, and the service plazas up and down the turnpike, they reach both sides. So you don't have to wait in that particular line to get your gas, specifically for your side of the car. So things have been calm where we are here, just a steady flow of people preparing, evacuees, people here in Central Florida as well. But I have heard from them elsewhere, man, it's been harder to get gas, even harder if you were coming from South Florida, and now the entire southeast coast is on alert for Hurricane Dorian. So we have more in-depth coverage from Liana and our hurricane expert, Dr. Cosell, back in studio. So guys, what's it looking like?
Yeah,
Thanks so much, Felicia. Live in Orlando right now. But of course, we have been getting tons of questions on social media about Hurricane Dorian. So we want to answer some of them right now. Take a look at the first question. Just bought a vacation place at Myrtle Beach. I'm not happy this morning. What are the chances Dorian hurricane can stay completely off the coast and head out to sea? And that's something, both of us, we were talking about this yesterday, and you were kind of already seeing that indication that we were going to see more of a eastward trend. And sure enough, that's kind of what we're seeing in this advisory.
It seems like the guidance has been doing that, but that doesn't remove the possibility that still, even though it's smaller than it was yesterday, that possibility still exists. That, for example, Dorian could just landfall in Florida or Georgia or the Carolinas. That is still on the table. Nobody is off the hook. I'm going to take this out 1,000 times and really prove this in this. Nobody is off the hook. When you're dealing with an extremely dangerous category 4 hurricane, please understand that's the case, and that means something. But, with all that said, the most likely track does keep it offshore Florida and maybe far enough to keep even the top storm force winds offshore. That appears to be maybe the most likely scenario, but not the only scenario. That would bring maybe some more significant hurricane impacts to South Carolina and North Carolina. I do believe we have to watch for areas farther to the north because this will be getting very close to think by the end of next week.
Definitely with that question, Myrtle Beach, heads up, time to prepare is now. We saw the couple days away.
Not out of the woods, but perhaps the worst of it stays offshore, but yet to come will change.
Another question, is the eye wall or the northwest corner usually the most dangerous part of the storm? We were kind of talking about things during the first week, just as far as like what that direction of that question was going.
The eye wall is the ring of thunderstorms right around the center point, the eye. That is where the strongest winds are. So in that question, is the eye wall the most dangerous part of the storm by far? But what part of the eye wall has the strongest winds? It depends. I mean, sometimes they find strongest winds on one side of it. Sometimes they'll find strongest winds over there. So it could really be anywhere. But as if the storm were to make landfall, the most dangerous part of it would be where the onshore wind, for example, brings some storm surge inland. That would be the most dangerous part of it, but not necessarily where exactly the strongest winds are.
I think it could be a little tropical.
Water part of it. Storm surge, flooding, that could be
Right, exactly. So along and to the right of the track is where the storm surge would be. That would be the most significant hazard there. But exactly where the strongest winds are, as I mentioned, they could be really sometimes anywhere around that time.
All right, let's move on to the next question. We plan on riding out the storm in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. We are now partially outside of the coast. Should we still pick Sundays up? And of course, I mean, this is something that we're going to be deciding on, especially as that cone gets more fine-tuned, the center of the storm. But either way, we're still going to be seeing impacts. Despite it staying a high in Cat 4, low in Cat 5, we're still going to look at water. That's going to be a lot of rain coming out along with Hurricane Dorian too, so.
Whether or not you want to put up your shutters is your decision. I don't know if I want to go there and tell people what to do. That's a personal decision. But you are right. In South Florida, the odds of Dorian making a landfall are less, but that still doesn't remove some chance that it could do that. And then, let's take that another step. Let's just say that the hurricane does something like that. It will still probably bring some impacts to even South Florida. So, if you have tropical storm force wind gusts, maybe think about what you would do then.
Yeah, well, we did have the most recent National Hurricane Center advisory pop up. So let's go ahead and talk about that, Dr. Pascal.
Well, there's the advisory, 150 miles per hour in the wind speed, extremely dangerous Category 4, moving almost due west, maybe slightly north of that. This is a very bad scenario for the Bahamas. Extremely dangerous hurricane conditions will be moving through later tomorrow.
All right, continue sending us your questions as well as taking a look at our team coverage as we track Dorian.
Are you dermaplaning yet? Your skin is just so much smoother and clearer, and makeup goes on perfectly. My skin looks younger and healthier.
My skin is instantly brighter. It's amazing.
Now you can bring professional style dermaplaning into your home with Flawless Dermaplane Glow, the new exfoliating device from Finishing Touch that instantly transforms your skin to a more radiant, younger looking complexion in minutes. Flawless Dermaplane Glow instantly and painlessly removes the top layer of dry, dead skin to reveal brighter, smoother, younger-looking skin the very first time you use it.
Dermaplaning is the most popular treatment that my clients request. The moment they get it, they are hooked. You just can't get enough. I love the Dermaplane Glow. It's very user-friendly. Gives like a really radiant, dewy glow to the skin.
I can't stop touching my face.
An easy-to-use contour design, a professional-grade exfoliating edge with safety guard, and just like a professional treatment, a built-in LED light so you never miss a spot.
It's very easy to do.
It's gentle on all skin types and tones. Your makeup will never look flawless if it's sitting on top of dead skin and peach fuzz, but Dermaplane Glow exfoliates that layer to create a smooth surface for creams and makeup.
My makeup just glides on. Even my moisturizer, my skincare products, they go on easier.
The Dermaplane Glow transforms my skin from dull to radiant and glowing. It gets rid of all the dead skin cells, all of the peach fuzz, and basically gives you brand new skin.
Get your flawless Dermaplane Glow, including exfoliating heads for easy replacement. Go online now at dermaplaneglow.com for only $19.99 with a 60-day money-back guarantee, or call 1-800-773-9176. Order right now and your shipping is free.
It's unbelievable. I'm glowing right now.
Flawless Dermaplane Glow. Brighter, more youthful-looking skin instantly.
Try Target same-day delivery. Delivered to your door so you can do more. More thrill. More skill. More chill. Target run and done.
So Josh, you going for our Drive Safe and Safe discount?
Yep. Using the app, driving safe. You wanna go? You wanna go, bro? Hey, do not mess with my discount. You can save up to 30%. Let's go! Nice to meet you. Go get him, Tiger.
Sounds like you've got this.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm.
Bear presents A Job Well Done. Painting be done and stay done. Bear, ranked #1 in customer satisfaction with interior paints. Right now, get incredible savings on Bear, exclusively at the Home Depot.
This is a track that has a significant amount of uncertainty.
Well, the biggest thing is not knowing what's going to happen.
The key is to have your plan and make those preparations right now.
Welcome back to our continuous coverage of Hurricane Dorian. You are looking at this satellite image of what can be only described as a monster storm on the cusp of being a Category 5 as of this latest update. Still a Category 4, but that is considered a major hurricane. Winds around 150 miles per hour. This is a textbook hurricane. When you look at pictures of what a hurricane is supposed to look like when it's healthy and functioning correctly and possibly continuing to intensify, that's what you're seeing with Hurricane Dorian. I'm meteorologist Felicia Combs live here in Orlando alongside storm tracker Jim Cantori in Stuart, Florida. And we also have hurricane expert Dr. Greg Postel. We've got our eyes on you from Florida through Georgia into North and South Carolina as the entire southeast coast has their eye on Dorian. This storm, the track has been very fluid, and that's why everyone is getting prepared. That's been the feeling here at this Service Plaza in Orlando where I am. It is filling up behind me, and that has been the story today. We've seen waves of people coming, trying to get gas, and the same thing that I've heard from everyone. While it looks nice and calm and tranquil here, that has not been the case across other parts of Orlando or even places in South Florida. We talked to several evacuees who said, they couldn't even find gas near where they were, and they were so thankful to be here. This particular Service Plaza not only has just your normal gas, but it also has places for charging electric cars, which some people said that was really a great thing to find as well. So the overall sense here
in Orlando from people evacuating, from people living here, has been that they are taking this very seriously. And that really needs to be the trend across the entire southeast coast. I think everyone in Orlando kind of woke up and saw that maybe the track shifted a little bit east, but the general tone that I've heard is let's be safe, not sorry, as Orlando is actually still in the cone. There's still going to be some movement with the exact track of this hurricane. The people who we spoke to from South Florida said that, you know, they're evacuating and they would rather be just completely safe than have to worry about it. And speaking of South Florida, Dr. Costel, our hurricane expert, does it seem like South Florida is completely out of the woods, or do we still think that everyone really needs to be very vigilant in South Florida, say West Palm Beach and Miami?
That's a great question, Felicia, and nobody is out of the woods. I don't want to let the guard down, even if you live in Key West, for example. I mean, this is an extremely dangerous hurricane. And it is true, the trend has been eastward and farther offshore, and maybe the risk is less for South Florida, for example, than it was a couple of days ago, but it is not zero. Why take the chance with a Category 4 hurricane, nearly a Cat 5, moving in that direction for now steadily? Even if it doesn't make landfall in Florida, there will still probably be some significant weather impacts to deal with as well. But we do know the Bahamas, for example, are going to get absolutely hammered by extremely dangerous Dorian as it brings its winds well over 100 miles per hour and significant storm surge to the region, unfortunately. Well, that's an interesting set of patterns. Look at this. So this is really what's telling us is that the the hurricane hunters are flying around, slicing and dicing their way through Dorian. Now, the satellite picture is not showing up, but trust me, it's there. It might give it a second here before we can do this. But the idea is that they are finding some extremely strong winds that are going to be continuing to move through the region. And that is, let's see. Okay, let's get to a different graphic. That one didn't work. Time to move on. All right, so there is Dorian right now. And we are dealing with a path that is in that direction, that has been in that direction for the past week, but that has now since turned to the west. That has been something that is expected and unwanted at the same time. This continues now to move steadily closer to the Bahamas and the southeastern United States in response to a steering pattern that has directed it that way. This has been the expected part of the forecast, the most predictable part. We all knew that the turn toward the west is going to occur and very likely bring the Bahamas at risk, high risk, for seeing a destructive hurricane move through. That is still the case. The steering flow patterns are like that. They are not going to allow Dorian to run northward and escape everybody. This is unfortunately going to be moving through the Bahamas very shortly. The latest hurricane track is this line, the center line, right? It doesn't tell you that that's only where the impacts are going to be. Of course, the impacts spread far and wide beyond that. Like this, for example, the tropical storm force winds extend outward over 100 miles. So let's just say this is the case. Let's just say that the center of Dorian were to take this path. And again, that could move this way. It could move this way. We just don't know yet. But there will be some adjustments to this going forward. But take that for now. Tropical storm force winds would still then move through parts of eastern Florida and bring in some high weather impacts with it as well, with an onshore east wind and some coastal flooding. So even if the track suggests it's going to be offshore, we know there are going to be impacts. But how far offshore, let's just say it will be offshore, how far offshore is it going to be? The guidance has trended eastward, and that is a signal. That is not noise. There has been a movement to bring Dorian farther and farther offshore and to introduce a growing risk for a landfall farther to the north of the Carolinas. We knew this was a possibility days ago. We talked about it a lot here in the Weather Channel, that even if you're not in the cone in the Carolinas, don't lose sight of Dorian. You're not off the hook. You're not off the hook. So pay attention to the forecast, because the exact track is still uncertain. While the forecast is trending farther to the east, we're still not exactly sure where it's going. One of the pieces of the puzzle, the answers to this one of them, may ride in the disturbance in the jet stream that is right here now, that it's going to be moving this way over the next couple of days, and will introduce a little bit of a sort of a counterclockwise flow over the southeastern U.S. If indeed that does take place, that would try to get Dorian northward and north out to sea. We don't know if that's going to be the case, but the guidance has been looking at that system more clearly, bringing it more, simulating it a little bit more obviously. And with that in mind, I think that's why we're seeing some of the trend. There are probably other factors, I'm sure, but that's one of them. But let's talk about the trend, because here's the Hurricane Center's forecast track. Notice that it's still on the left side, on the west side of much of the guidance still. So, you know, there are plenty of options that bring Dorian safely out to sea for some, maybe not for everybody. But there are also still some options on the table that bring it close and if not inland into Florida. So that's why when Felicia asked me that question, can you completely remove your guard and take it down to South Florida? The answer is no, you cannot. There is still some chance that Dorian makes significant impacts to South Florida. The trend is good, but the certainty is not completely there. I'm going to send it back to Liana now with breaking news.
Yeah, along those same lines, Dr. Postel, breaking right now, South Carolina's governor, Henry McMaster, has declared a state of emergency. You can see where the cone is in relation to South Carolina as we put it up on your screen here. But of course, we can't expect impacts associated with Hurricane Dorian to reach the Carolinas. This is taking us into late next week, Wednesday and even Thursday. We even have a word of evacuation, so you definitely need to know your zone. Here we go. No evacuations currently in effect, but it is definitely something to talk about because you need to know your zone across South Carolina. Take a look at where you need to go. SCEMD.org is where you need to find your zone, and that will just dictate whether or not you would need to, what you would need to know as far as your zone goes. But of course, the rest of the Southeast remains on alert. All right, well, Dorian's cone still includes much of eastern Florida, and that's where we find storm tracker Jim Cantori in Stuart, Florida, just north of West Palm Beach.
The Sunshine State breathing a little easier, but of course not out of the woods yet. We're still in the cone. It is a track cone. It is the potential, or it shows the potential, I should say, of where the center of the storm may come. And there are still some of the models that bring this very close or in to Florida. Most of the guidance has shifted to the east. You've seen that trend now for about 3 model runs. It's been very consistent. It's been very sharp. There'll still be impacts, especially on the coastline. All right, let's take a look at some of these impacts that we may see, especially given what some of the pre-existing conditions are. And what I mean by that is what's happened over the summer. Well, I've set the stage for you. It's been very wet, especially in South Florida. So the water is high, all right, just from the runoff. We've had a king tide that goes until September 3rd. So you're getting a higher than normal tide because of that. Now you throw in the potential for heavy rain on that, and oh boy, places like Lake Okeechobee, which the river I'm behind here, the St. Lucie River, actually comes from. That takes the water out of Lake Okeechobee and feeds it, if you will, into the Atlantic Ocean. It's been running high. They were very concerned that that lake could get up over 15 feet, which would overtop some of the levees. So the fact that that track has moved a little bit further east also takes the potential for that heavy rain to move further east. As of right now, and the time I bring you this report, here in Martin County, the only evacuations we have are mandatory for the Barrier Islands. And that goes into effect Sunday at 10 a.m. Got a chance to talk to Governor Ron DeSantis earlier about each county and their responsibility.
We've really been working collaboratively with the counties. I mean, they develop their plans for evacuation, and we really wanted to work in concert with them. And our thing is at the state level, I'm not going to countermand what you think is best. I just want to make sure that you guys are moving forward. And they've all done that. I think we've worked well together. So I think we're in a good position to be able to respond to whatever happens. And the main thing at this point, I think, is that people just need to be prepared, remain vigilant. And if it ends up going further east, you're not going to be any worse for it. But if it ends up coming and hitting the state, you're going to be thankful that you did take time to prepare.
How things change with time. A couple of days ago, we were thinking we would have another Labor Day hurricane here in the state of Florida. All right? Now, not so much, but don't let your guard down completely. We still have a very, very powerful, high-end Category 4 hurricane to deal with in Dorian. Reporting from Stuart, Florida, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori.
All right, from the coast of Florida, let's head a little bit more inland. That's where you find Felicia Combs in Orlando. And Felicia, I mean, people are still trying to figure out what they're going to be doing. So what's the vibe there as they continue to prepare? And, of course, you're situated at a gas station.
Yeah, you know, Liana, the vibe that we've gotten from most of the people that we've seen have been people evacuating. evacuating from out of South Florida. We actually talked to one dad who said he had just dropped, or he was dropping his daughter off at college near West Palm Beach, and then the school closed in preparation for the storm, and so they just are bringing her back with them for now until they figure out exactly what's going on. So a lot of people that we have talked about were evacuating from South Florida, particularly the Barrier Islands as well. We've talked to some people from the Barrier Islands there near Cocoa Beach, and they said, we've been through this, we've seen it, and we don't want to have to sit and ride out this storm. The big thing is, though, you might make it through the storm, relatively unscathed, but how long are you going to be without power? How much water? How many supplies do you have? And I think that's what a lot of people are thinking of as they are evacuating. We talked to one guy who is from the Central Florida area, and he said they're prepared. He feels like everyone around him are really prepared for this storm.
We're stocking up on groceries. We've got a generator for the house, so getting gas in the cars. And we feel like Orlando is going to be in a pretty good position, so we're not panicking or leaving or anything like that. Just kind of battening down the hatches.
And of course, always a good idea to not be panicking, but we do want to make sure that everyone stays very vigilant, even with this cone shift. So now the whole southeast coast on guard, especially North Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. But I think we could take a play from the book of everyone that I've been seeing here at this gas station in Orlando and Central Florida. Everyone is very calm. Everyone has been very respectful. We haven't seen any issues. Now, granted, there has been FHP out here helping to direct traffic, and some of the Turnpike Authority employees also were directing traffic earlier, but we really haven't seen any issues at all. And everyone has just been kind of echoing the same thing. They're saying, we're prepared and we're watching. So for Central Florida, the main key right now is kind of a wait and see, but stay up to date on exactly what's going on. And of course, here in Central Florida, we're still kind of waiting and seeing, but the Bahamas, Dorian is knocking on their door, Liana, so everyone there should already be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Felicia Combs. And live in Orlando, Florida, but she mentioned Bahamas. Yes, you are preparing as the beating of Hurricane Dorian is just a day away. We are expecting those impacts, especially potential for catastrophic damage, as Hurricane Dorian is threatening 10 to 15-foot storm surge. We do have the warnings in place, the hurricane warning in effect for the northern Bahamas, as well as that hurricane watch in effect for the southern Bahamas. We could see impacts as early as tomorrow morning. You can feel Dorian's hit for sure. So let's go ahead and see what Dorian's doing right now. Still a strong Category 4 hurricane with winds associated with it at 150 miles per hour, the pressure at 945 millibars, and it's moving west at 8 miles per hour. So as we take a look at those warnings, the purple is that hurricane warning, including Freeport and Nassau, and then hurricane watches for the southern part of the Bahamas. We also have to be concerned with that storm surge, 10 to 15-foot storm surge for both locations, including in the warned area as well as the watch location. But that storm surge can be deadly. Of course, almost 50% of hurricane deaths are associated with that storm surge. Flooding, almost 26%. Let's time out that threat from Dorian starting this afternoon, 1 p.m. We're watching as it starts to make its appearances when we get into late evening hours. Strong winds, starting to see the first signs of heavy rain. It's going to be reaching the northern part of the Bahamas by Sunday afternoon. That's 3 p.m. And then it continues to slowly move west and drift northward by Monday morning. That's 10 a.m. Granted, this is staying slightly offshore, but we can still expect those impacts across the Florida coastline. We're still looking at almost a couple feet of rain offshore, but still, we're looking at almost 2 feet of rain right here, smack dab across northern Bahamas.
This program brought to you by the Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event, now through September 3rd.
Don't miss your golden opportunity to experience the luxury you desire on a full line of utility vehicles at the Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event.
Lease the 2019 RX 350 for $389 a month for 36 months, and we'll make your first month's payment.
Experience amazing.
Remember imagination? Where anything could happen. Where some weird reasons taste like sour-flavored mixed berries, watermelons, even strawberries. Your fun grows naturally for miles. Peckers can be smiles, and fruit snacks can simply be whole fruit. Sun-made sour raisin snacks. No added sugar, no fake colors, just great sour flavor. Imagine that.
Okay, everyone, our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Great tasting Ensure with 9 grams of protein and 26 vitamins and minerals. Ensure for strength and energy.
Bear presents A Job Well Done. Painting be done and stay done. Bear, ranked #1 in customer satisfaction with interior paints. Right now, get incredible savings on Bear, exclusively at the Home Depot.
You can't fake the goodness of real strawberries. The crunch of real almonds. How chocolatey chunks taste in cold milk. We keep it real. Because you can't fake delicious. Special K.
All money managers might seem the same, but some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios. Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. Fisher Investments, clearly better money management.
So how did this happen? Now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Get your birdseed ready.
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it.
So I'm not going to need stitches then?
No, just the antibiotic cream. Oh, watch out.
United Healthcare.
It's like a storm that cuts a path, it breaks your will, it feels like that. You think you're lost, you're not lost.
As this magnificent species edges closer to extinction, illegal hunting continues to rise. Are you ready to let her go? For a gift of $8 a month, you can symbolically adopt a snow leopard and help protect them and other endangered species and their habitats. Call now or go online to helpwwf.org and receive this adoption kit as thanks. Will you stand by her? Please, help us stop the killing today.
This is epic!
You're watching America's most trusted TV news network.
You guys hear what it's right here live on the ground right now. It's coming down.
The Weather Channel.
We can't stress this enough. Now is the time for the Southeast to prepare for dangerous Hurricane Dorian. Here's what we know right now. Dorian, on the cusp of becoming a Category 5 hurricane. Governor Henry McMaster has declared a state of emergency for South Carolina. Parts of the Bahamas are under a hurricane warning, as well as that hurricane watch. And Florida's governor is warning everyone to not let their guard down, despite shifts in the forecast. Now, Hurricane Dorian could impact places far inland, like Orlando. And that's where we find our Felicia Combs. And Felicia, I mean, it's a holiday weekend, it's Labor Day weekend, but how has traffic been? How serious are people taking this hurricane threat?
Liana, where we are right now, I will say people are taking it very seriously. So we are at a service plaza along the turnpike, and I have heard from people saying that elsewhere, people who were evacuating from South Florida or even elsewhere around the city of Orlando, it is not the case. You're finding gas stations, nearly 50% of the stations in Orlando currently out of gas as of this morning. So it's a little bit more stressful in other places, but at this particular service station along the turnpike, this is along the evacuation route. So historically, these never actually run out of gas. They only close when they need to send the employees home to make sure that they're safe in the storm. So not only do we have people pumping gas here, but we've seen a lot of people filling up the air in their tires and making sure their tires are ready to go. And that's been one thing that we've been seeing people doing. This is Roberto. I was just talking to him. So Roberto, where are you coming from?
So I'm coming from the Dominican Republic.
Okay, so are you just driving through Orlando, or where are you heading?
No, yeah, I'm living in Orlando, but I would travel going to Atlanta, Georgia now.
Are you trying to get away from the storm?
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, we're waiting for the torment for the next Monday, no? Possible he coming out of Florida, no?
Thank you, Roberto. So that's been what we've been hearing from a lot of people here. They are, just waiting and seeing. Maybe they're going to North Florida. Maybe they're going to Atlanta. So that has really been what we've been seeing. So all across the Southeast, we are trying to keep an eye on this storm from Florida all the way into the Carolinas. Back to you. Actually, let's keep talking about Disney. So you're looking at video from Disney Springs, and so far Disney Springs not really doing anything. Disney World, we have heard they're going to continue running as normal. However, some places like Blizzard Beach are canceling some of the sporting events for this weekend. Of course, a lot of the theme parks in this area, SeaWorld is actually going to close early tomorrow. SeaWorld will be closing at 6 p.m. rather than 9:30 p.m. So there are a lot of different things happening here, and I think the general feel of most people, even people who are just here evacuating, is that everyone is getting prepared.
Our local Chevron station that we usually frequent, they were out. Water and provisions were out. There was not too much traffic, but it was kind of a feeling of, hey, we need to take this seriously.
And we're here in Orlando, of course, still. And as I said, most people are just trying to continue preparing. And that has been the feel that we're getting. Everyone getting their cars ready, making sure they're gassed up as they maybe head out of town. Starting to see the service plaza pick up again. And that has been, waves on and off throughout the day of people coming through. So we're here in Orlando. We'll keep you updated. And back to you guys.
All right. Thanks so much, Felicia Combs, live in Orlando, Florida. Of course, it's great to know that people are taking this threat seriously, and something else to consider. Much of the Southeast on alert for flooding. This from Hurricane Dorian. High tide already causing issues in some low-lying streets in Charleston, South Carolina Thursday. And with Dorian hitting at the same time as the king tide, cities from Miami to Savannah and Charleston could see elevated levels of storm surge. So let's talk about those king tides, starting off with the tidal forecast for Charleston, South Carolina. We are in high tide at the moment. We will see another high tide this evening, and then once again early Sunday morning. But of course, as we get closer and closer to Dorian's arrival, as we get into early next week, we are still expecting that overall trend where these high tides will continue to dominate. Now, with the threat of Dorian, here it is. As we time out that threat, as we get through Sunday, Monday, it's slowly making its way up the southeast coast. This is Tuesday, September 3rd, and we're looking at it just offshore of the east coast of Florida as it starts making that northern turn now. But it's going to be reaching the Carolinas, Wednesday and Thursday of next week. So when we look at these king tides, what I want to really point out is the fact that they can be worsened by these coastal storms, including hurricanes. So it's a seasonal high tide cycle. It occurs about 3 to 4 times per year, and it definitely causes localized flooding. Jacksonville, Florida, another spot that we have to be concerned with. St. John's River flows straight into you, and it's definitely going to be seeing impacts from Hurricane Dorian, even if the forecast keeps it way offshore, the core of the storm. However, we can still see these tidal impacts Notice even though this is Saturday and Sunday, we can still expect this trend Saturday morning and early Sunday morning as well. And with that said, very likely to see flash flooding right along the coast, everywhere in the yellow, spreading from Miami up towards Wilmington, the Outer Banks. Heads up, Sunday through Wednesday, this is the time frame that we're looking at. We are expecting possible flash flooding, even extending into the interior of the southeast, locations like Macon and includes the Piedmont, and we are expecting that threat for flash flooding. Lots of rain coming with this. Let's go ahead and continue our team coverage next.
Bear presents A Job Well Done. Painting be done and stay done. Bear, ranked #1 in customer satisfaction with interior paints. Right now, get incredible savings on Bear, exclusively at the Home Depot.
So, Josh, you going for a Drive Safe and Safe discount?
Yep. Using the app, driving safe. You wanna go? You wanna go, bro? Hey, do not mess with my discount. You can save up to 30%. Let's go! Nice to meet you. Go get him, Tiger.
Sounds like you've got this.
Yeah, definitely.
Get a discount up to 30% with Drive Safe and Save from State Farm.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I started with Onoro.
COPD tries to say, go this way. I say, I'll go my own way with Onoro.
Once daily Onoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Onoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Onoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Onoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Onoro.
Ask your doctor about once daily Onoro to start treating your COPD.
Save at Onoro.com.
Morning, noon, night. Indulgent, delicious, irresistible. Fancy Feast makes delighting your cat delightfully easy. Every recipe, every last detail. Another fancy way to show your love. Fancy Feast, introducing savory centers. Pate with a center of gravy.
Mirror, mirror, on the wall. Makeup mode. Done. Start happily ever after playlist. Starting playlist. When does the nail salon open?
At 9 a.m.
Oh, I need to update my profile pic.
Setting a reminder.
Add catnip to my shopping list.
Okay.
Shower.
Take the floor somewhere unexpected. Everything you need is at your fingertips and at the Home Depot. On-trend styles with innovations to make it pet-proof. Make it life-proof. Make it waterproof. Make it beautiful. And the Home Depot has everything you need to make it yours. Today is the day for doing it, with even lower prices right now on vinyl plank, laminate, and tile. Only from the Home Depot.
You can't fake the goodness of real strawberries. The crunch of real almonds. How chocolatey chunks taste in cold milk. We keep it real. Because you can't fake delicious. Special K.
If you haven't tried Taco Bell's breakfast crunch wrap filled with crispy bacon, scrambled eggs, and an entire hash brown, then consider this your wake-up call. Wake up to the breakfast crunch wrap at Taco Bell. Order ahead and have it waiting.
You can always count on the champagne of beers for the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. It's always just right. Welcome to the High Life.
Welcome back to our continuous coverage of Hurricane Dorian, a dangerous Category 4 storm. I'm live here in Orlando along the Turnpike at one of the service stations, but it's not only Florida now that really needs to be vigilant in watching this monster of a storm. We're saying the entire southeast coast, so we're talking to you, Florida. Georgia, South Carolina, and North Carolina, we all want you to all be watching this storm very closely, as this is a very strong storm. As of some of the last reports, tropical storm force winds extending out from the center as much as 100 miles or more. So even if this were to stay just off the coast, you're still dealing with that possibility for tropical storm force winds. And more here to talk more about that is our hurricane expert, Dr. Greg Postel.
Yeah, thanks, Felicia. You know, we are now going to be we are joined by Ken Graham, director of the National Hurricane Center, to give us some more insight on Hurricane Dorian and its close approach to the United States. There are still so many factors involved, and we're not exactly sure where this storm will hit and or when or if. And I'd like to bring Director Graham in because very important questions need to be resolved here. Thank you very much for joining us, by the way. And I'd like to ask you, in particular, we've seen some trend in the forecast now. Why is it that the forecast has shifted a bit farther to the east?
You know, we've been talking about having the cone is just an important factor here because we knew there's a lot of variability in that forecast. This is a situation that is a game of inches in time. When you think of the hurricane forecast, you normally talk about the track, you normally talk about the intensity, but another big factor is the forward speed. So a couple days ago with a faster system, you would have pushed the center towards Florida, and there was even solutions getting it to the Gulf. But when you slow it down and allow that ridge of high pressure that we've been talking about to weaken a little bit, and that other disturbance really impact this storm, we start to see it slow down and pull to the north. I mean, it's a game of inches with this thing. It's a timing thing. So the slow movement caused the track change.
Now, that's a really important point that you raised. It is a game of inches. And so for folks, for example, that look at this in South Florida where you are and thinking, well, I'm not in the cone anymore, what does that mean for residents that are maybe not exactly in the cone or maybe just in it, that have seen things change? How are they sort of to take these forecast changes, and what should they do going forward?
Yeah, we always talk about these impacts being well outside the cone. So here's a couple different scenarios. Either way, the Bahamas is going to have a devastating impact because wherever this thing starts to turn back towards the right, in other words, the north, it has to slow down. It's like a big ship, and it takes time to be able to turn that. So as a result, if it turns a little earlier, you might be able to be a little further east on the right side of the cone. However, I've seen also over the years when you start getting the slow movement, 2 miles an hour over the Bahamas, just devastating situation with the rainfall and also the winds, a little wobble, little wiggles matter. We've talked about that before. So a little shift in that track has consequences downstream. So that's the scenario. That's why we have a cone. Little teeny changes matter. So we just got to be prepared. We got to keep watching it for these little fluctuations.
So throughout the Florida Peninsula, pay very close attention, right? Because you're not off the hook. That's pretty clear. What would you say, for example, to residents farther to the north in Georgia and in the Carolinas, given what you've seen recently?
Yeah, for everybody up there, just really pay attention to this forecast, and you have time, right? I mean, if you think about this, that's 8 a.m. on Wednesday. This is Thursday at 8 a.m., so you have time. So you really got to just watch the forecast and see how far offshore. However, as we always say, even if the forecast is a little offshore, you can still see some impacts. You can start seeing that onshore flow, prolonged onshore flow. And we can't forget, we focus so much on this track in the cone. Remember, this is a major hurricane, 150-mile-an-hour hurricane, so a serious situation. That's a lot of wind to be pushing the water in for the storm surge. So we're going to be looking at some of those calculations later today and definitely over the next few days.
And I have one more question. Do you think you will be issuing tropical storm watches for the Florida coast or more, or hurricane watches for anybody in the U.S. mainland later today?
You know, we were watching that so close. It was interesting a little bit ago. They're actually trying to time out with the latest track, literally using a compass and protractors, trying to see where those winds are in the wind field. It's really close, so we're watching it real close for this afternoon just in case.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Director Ken Graham of the National Hurricane Center. You guys are doing fantastic work for everybody involved, and I know we all thank you very much for being with us and giving us all the valuable information that you do in a timely fashion. So that was wonderful information and insight from National Hurricane Center, the experts who are in charge of really giving us all the latest on Hurricane Dorian. So there we go, 150-mile-per-hour Category 4 hurricane continues to chug its way on westward. Here's one of the things that Director Graham was talking about, the Bahamas. The Bahamas are going to be first in line, unfortunately, to see, and we think now, extremely damaging impacts from Hurricane Dorian, with a hurricane warning and a hurricane watch-up. Winds likely well over 100 miles per hour for those islands in the eye wall and The storm surge up to 15 feet. We'll have much more on Hurricane Dorian coming right up after the break.
Lowe's knows more daylight is more time to do your summer projects right. We do summer right too, with everyday deals on all you need. So what you want to do gets done how you want it. Now get 5 bags of premium mulch for $10. Do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. When you start with a better hot dog from Oscar Mayer,
Oh, no way to treat a dog.
you can do no wrong.
Where did you learn that? The internet. Yeah.
With no artificial preservatives or added nitrates or nitrites, it's all for the love of hot dogs.
Power outages can be unpredictable, inconvenient, and disruptive to your life, posing a real threat to your comfort and safety. When the power goes out, you have no lights, no refrigeration, no heating or air conditioning. Your well or sump pump won't work. Your modern daily electronics are rendered useless. And what if the power's out for days or weeks? Are you prepared? You can be with a Generac home standby generator.
24 days we were without power. I had water, I had ice, I had coffee, I had air conditioning. I was able to stay here because of Generac.
When an outage occurs, your Generac home standby generator automatically powers up, so your life goes on without disruption. You and your family are comfortable, safe, and secure. Generac generators run on your home's existing natural gas or propane. And Generac's standard Mobile Link remote monitoring system keeps you posted on operating status, maintenance updates, and more. Generac generators are designed, engineered, and purpose-built in the USA. Generac is the #1 manufacturer of home standby generators in the world. 8 out of 10 home generators are Generac, with thousands of satisfied customers.
Very good product. Very, very good reviews from everybody.
Prices start at just $19.99, and special financing is available with surprisingly affordable monthly payments. Call now to schedule your free in-home assessment with one of Generac's 6,000 nationwide dealers. The call is free, the assessment is free, and there's no obligation to buy. And if you act now, receive a free 1,200-watt inverter generator or a 40-volt cordless blower, up to a $500 value. Call now, so the next time there's a power outage, your home powers up. Power your life with Generac. Call or go online to schedule your free in-home assessment today.
Discover new San Pellegrino Essenza, a twist of Mediterranean flavors with the gentle bubbles of San Pellegrino. Add a twist of flavor. San Pellegrino Essenza, tastefully Italian.
We switched our detergent to one that's clean.
And if you make the switch, you'll see what we mean. Tide Pure Clean, because it's made with plants.
Tide Pure Clean, get stains out of his pants.
Tide Pure Clean, it has nothing to hide.
It's made with plants and has the cleaning strength of Tide.
The first plant-based detergent with the cleaning power of Tide.
Each year, Americans waste $21 billion by overpaying on car insurance. That's why I went to thezebra.com. Because while every company claims to save you money on car insurance, the Zebra shows you who actually can.
Compare car insurance for free at thezebra.com today.
Welcome back to the Weather Channel and our continuous coverage of Hurricane Dorian. Look at this. If you were to Google an image of a hurricane, a powerful Category 4 hurricane, this might be exactly what you're seeing. This is the textbook look of a strong hurricane that is not being inhibited by much of anything. We've got a well-defined eye wall. We've got that stadium effect. You can see some of the venting going on with the storm as well that says this storm is breathing. It is keeping itself alive. And I'll tell you what, moving across those warm waters, it has plenty of fuel to work with as well. So a very strong Category 4 storm right now, on the cusp of being a Category 5 storm. And of course, that forecast has been fluid, so everyone has been watching very closely. That's one of the #1 things I've been hearing here in Orlando. You can see behind me, we are at one of the service plazas along the turnpike here, and it has been, fairly quiet, but a steady stream. So when I say quiet, not a lot of honking, not a lot of anger, which is a nice change of pace, but definitely a steady stream of people coming to this service plaza. And something that I learned that I did not not know, despite being a Floridian, these gas stations along the turnpike, along the evacuation routes, historically, they've never run out of gas. The only time they close is when it gets too dangerous for their employees to be here. So the running out of gas, not an issue. But, you know, a lot of people really taking heed and heading out. We talked to one family earlier who's evacuating from Palm Beach County.
We live in South Florida in Palm Beach County, and we know how some of the other storms have been, and we've made a decision